I don't know if y'all heard that little music earlier from my phone. I don't know, from an old lady.
Oh, I don't
Okay,
hear
maybe it was just
music.
me. Never mind. Never mind. Never mind. It was just me.
No worries. No
Is it
worries.
warm? I mean, you just brought me a cold chicken tender in your hand. Can you put it on the plate? I appreciate that. Yeah. Hey, and can you hold it without with the other hand? Cause yeah. Thank you. Yeah, just put it on the plate.
All right. Well, hello, everybody. I'm going to mute Asia just for a little bit. But no worries. I got you, boo. My name is Ginger, and welcome to another one of the Not Ready for Quarantine Players script readings. Tonight we will be doing Death Becomes Her, and we are we are raising funds for Miss Kiva Washington. We're trying to help with medical bills. And actually, Asia, if you want to speak a little bit on that, that would be amazing. I'm going to unmute you or ask to unmute, I guess.
That's all right. Thank you so much, Ginger. And thank you all for being here for me, being there for me. This group has really got me through a lot, and I just appreciate y'all for what y'all do, and the efforts that you put in to helping each other and helping other people when it's necessary. I feel like it is something that I'm, definitely proud to be a part of, and you all should be a part of yourselves too. So shout out to y'all for being here and making a commitment to keeping this thing going. So but with that being said, I went to high school with Kiva. Like Kiva, everybody's called me mama. Y'all know me. I'm y'all mama. I'm everybody mama. And even when I was in high school, before I ever had kids, she was one of those kids that I had. And she had two sons. They both have since passed. Um, before her, and this illness that is you know that they have. We want to keep her. You know, we know that she's a fighter. I know that she's a fighter, and she's just a beautiful person. She does charity work. She's has different. Okay, thank you. All right, she has like different things that she does within the community and others. So I just wanted to show her a way that I could share my appreciation for her, and just being my friend to some of my friends. So again, somebody just shared the GoFundMe, so it's there if y'all want to share the GoFundMe. I had her Cash App, but I couldn't find it. But if I need her Cash App to send something to her directly, just let me know, and we can go from there.
Well, thank you so much. On
You're
that, let
welcome.
me
Thank you.
yeah, thank you. Let me introduce everybody to the players tonight. It is a small but mighty group, but this script didn't really call for a whole lot of extras, so I think it's still going to be the same fun that we always have. First of all, we have as our lead man playing Ernest Menville tonight. We have Sean Watson, aka Dad. We love Dad.
Happy to be here.
Yay! We also have tonight playing the amazing Madeline Ashton, Miss Stephanie Six Trombones in full face, and we appreciate and love. We have tonight as Liesel von Rumans and some extras. We have Andrew Watson here tonight. Yes. And then playing our extras tonight, we have Miss Kelsey Heberer Davis. We have Asia Gibbons Brown. And narrating tonight, we have Mr. Danny Wilson. I'm so excited. And of course, you has to deal with me playing Helen, just because I felt like it.
Hey, that's not a deal with
Yay.
my friend. We're all lucky.
Well, thank you. But I feel like we're ready to get the show on the road. So if y'all want to get into it, we'll start with Danny.
That was not purposeful. We fade in on the exterior of a New York skyline at night. A soft summer shower flashes and rumbles over New York City. A legend. Broadway, 1979. The title of a show, Songbird, blinks in red neon on a theater marquee, and next to it, the words Preview Tonight. Up above the title, the name Madeline Ashton glitters in brilliant black letters. A couple bursts out of the theater and breathes the night air as if for the very first time.
A musical version of Sweet Bird of Youth? Are they kidding?
Thank God you wanted to leave.
They hurry down the street as a second couple comes out of the theater.
Could you believe Madeline Ashton? Talk about waking the dead.
I gotta get a drink.
The second woman tosses her playbill, which lands face up on the sidewalk in the rain. There's a picture of a woman on the cover, a glamorous actress, and we cut to inside the theater that night. The actress's face and the picture on the playbill isn't exactly from yesterday. Madeline Ashton, 40-ish, has just reached the point where age is beginning to encroach on her incredible looks. She's elegant, she's beautiful, but if you look closely behind her eyes in a quiet moment, you'll notice something else. She's terrified. Right now, she's singing and dancing up a storm, seemingly without the benefit of training in singing or dancing. A dozen guys carry her across the stage while she sings the first act curtain number, Me. Walkouts continue in the audience.
What do I see? That's the question I'm most afraid of. One that asks me what I truly made of. What do I see? Much more than a reflection, a romance with sheer perfection. I see me, actress, woman, star, and lover, sister, sweetheart, slave, and mother. I see me, and I like what I see. Virgin, temptress, dream of others. Yes, it's me. Yes, it's me. Idol, goddess, shameless, hussy, diva, princess, lewd, and lusty. That's not me. Can't be me. You can trust me, mon ami. Everywhere I look, baby, all I see is a contradiction, a bad addiction, an inspiration to a generation. That's you. That's me. Bravo.
In the audience, two hands are intertwined. He, Dr. Ernest Menville, is in his 40s, a bit rumpled, but clear-eyed. She, Helen Sharp, is about 5 years younger. Pretty, but dowdy, Helen seems to have completely reinvented style by completely ignoring it. Her vincial is too harsh. Homey is a better word for Helen. Ernest beams, thoroughly enjoying the play. He leans over to Helen and whispers,
She's sensational.
Helen looks at him, concerned, and strangely saddened by his enjoyment of the play. We cut to the interior of the backstage at night. Madeline is in her dressing room backstage, examining her face critically in the mirror, holding the skin back in an imaginary facelift.
Wrinkled, wrinkled little star. Hope they'll never see the scar.
Rose, Madeline's factotum, comes into the room.
Your guests are here, Miss Ashton. Miss Helen Sharp with a gentleman.
How does she look?
Who?
Helen, you idiot.
Oh, I don't know. Smart, I guess. Kind of classy.
Ugh, who asked you? What do you know about smart and classy? Classy compared to who?
Well, compared to...
Watch it, Rose. You're too old to be out of a job.
What did I say?
Oh, please. If you get any slower, you'll be declared dead.
The door opens. Helen enters with Ernest, who follows her rather shyly. Madeline abandons all her nervousness and turns toward Helen with the greatest theatrical smile.
Hell, darling, I can't believe it.
How are you, Mad?
It's been too long. Oh, and don't you dare say how long.
They kiss. Madeline's eye lines shift toward Ernest, who nods and claps his hands politely in reference to the play.
Mad, I want you to meet Dr. Ernest Menville, my fiance.
Ernest Menville, the plastic surgeon. I've read all about you, doctor. How nice to finally meet you.
You were wonderful, Miss Ashton.
Ernest is quite a fan. He never told me he had such a Madeline Ashton thing.
Oh, I'm sure he doesn't have a thing, do you?
Oh, I mean, I
He trails off, just looking at Helen and laughing uncomfortably.
I'm so happy for you both. How did you meet? Where? Why?
Helen edited the first medical text I wrote, and we, well, you know.
An editor? What happened to writing?
Well, still trying.
Oh, don't be modest. She's brilliant, and the world will soon find out.
Tell me, doctor, do you think I'm starting to need you?
Ernest laughs uncomfortably again and shakes a finger at Madeline. Helen slides an arm possessively through his, pulling him closer.
So, have you two set a date?
Yes, we have.
No, we haven't.
They look at each other. A smile grows across Madeline's face like a fungus. We cut to the interior of an operating room during the day. An enormous eye is visible through a surgeon's lighted magnifying viewer. The eye is closed and creased on the side by crow's feet. A scalpel moves up along to make an incision. Ernest, the surgeon wielding the scalpel, is in a gown and mask. He addresses his assistants in rapid-fire jargon.
Move the retractors over. I'm going after the lateral fat pad. Better put a hemostat on it too. There's some decent sized vessels in there, and if I clip one, I don't need any extra bleeding.
He goes to make the incision, but stops, hearing a strange tapping sound. Tapping comes again. He looks over to the door, and Madeline stands outside. She waves through the glass, and she looks just ravishing. Ernest, surprised, grins broadly beneath the mask and waves back with one gloved, bloody hand. We cut to the inside of Helen's apartment at night, an austere place done in pastels and dimly lit. Helen sits on a sofa, tense, twisting a handkerchief in her hands. A cat winds around her legs. Ernest, still in his overcoat, paces in front of her.
And the cat showed up. For heaven's sake, it was dinner, a business dinner. The woman wanted my professional opinion.
Ernest, you don't know Madeline the way I do. She wants you. She wants you because you're mine. And I've lost men to her before. She turns on the flash and glitter and they're gone. That's why I wanted you to come meet her before we got married. I had to know if you could pass the Madeline Ashton test. Please, please don't fail. I couldn't take it again. I don't know what I'd do.
Do you know how silly you sound?
He goes to her and takes her hand.
I have absolutely no interest in Madeline Ashton.
We cut to the inside of a marriage hall by day. Ernest stands in a dark suit, hands folded in front of him. An officiant stands before him.
And do you, Ernest, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, to love and to cherish, in sickness and in health, till death do you part?
I do.
Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you man and wife.
Ernest turns to a bride standing next to him. He smiles happily, reaches out and lifts her veil. It's Madeline. He kisses her and a small group of guests cheer. Ernest is about to pull out of the rather chaste wedding kiss when Madeline runs one hand on the back of his hair, grabbing a handful of it. She runs her other hand down his chest, heading south. She pulls his head forward and puts her lips to his ear. She whispers something sexy, and from the look on Ernest's face, it's hot enough to light a cigarette from.
Oh God.
They kiss again, hard, and the choir bursts into the Hallelujah chorus. In the back of the church, almost hiding in the shadows, is Helen, devastated, and clutching a handkerchief tightly in her hands. She stares in front of the church at Ernest and Helen. They finally break.
I think your mic went away.
Let me just. Can you hear stuff?
Hello.
Can you hear me now? Good.
Yes.
Okay. They burst out the doors and down the steps of the church. Helen stares after them. She still clutches the handkerchief even more tightly now, and a trickle of blood oozes out from her palms, staining the cloth red. We cut to the interior of Helen's apartment by day. An enormous woman's butt stares us smack in the face. A legend! 5 years later. The apartment we're in is an absolute pigsty, the home of a lunatic, jammed with newspapers, food cartons, and dozens of cats which crawl everywhere. Or just, one dog, one great dog. Snow falls outside, visible through a window. There is a relentless pounding at the front door.
Come on, lady. We know you're in there.
The butt ignores the pounding and waddles across the kitchen. A hand opens a cabinet. 30 or 40 cans of vanilla cake frosting are stacked neatly inside. The hand picks one and cranks off the top.
This is your last warning. You can't just ignore an eviction notice.
Finally, the butt turns around. The owner of the butt is Helen, and she is an absolute mess. She's only 5 years older, but but quite a bit heavier, and shows no concern for her appearance. Her chin is streaked with frosting that probably tastes friggin' fantastic. She turns away from the door and goes back to the TV. She picks up a remote control and pushes play. On the TV, it's an old movie in the late 60s. A murder mystery. Madeline, much younger, dressed in evening wear, has come home to her apartment to find an intruder.
What are you doing here?
The intruder jumps her and strangles her with a stocking. Madeline screams and dies. Helen smiles.
We're breaking down the door.
Helen ignores them, pushes rewind, then play, then watches the same scene again. Madeline screams and dies. Then Helen rewinds it again. Behind her, the door smashes open and light floods the apartment. Cops and the landlord hurry in and then turn and reel at a stench. On the TV, Helen has started Madeline's death scene again. The cops come over and grab her by the arms, hauling her to her feet and dragging her to the door. Helen doesn't resist them, just strains to look back over her shoulder at the TV, grinning as she watches Madeline die again. We cut to the interior of a psychiatric ward by day. Helen, cleaned up now but still vastly overweight, sits in a straight back chair in a drab institutional room in a psychiatric ward, twisting a handkerchief in her hands. There are a half dozen other patients there, part of group therapy. The psychologist, a tough woman in her 40s, looks at Helen.
So, what about you, Helen? We haven't heard from you in a while. Is there anything you'd like to talk about with the group?
The group all turn to look at Helen apprehensively. One even bites a fingernail in dread. And Helen looks up. Her face is blank. Finally.
Yeah. My bad. Yes. I would like to talk about Madeline.
She barely has the words out of her mouth when the other group members throw up their hands and groan, some even shouting at her in anger. The psychologist leaps to her feet and points an accusing finger at Helen.
My office.
Seems like really great mental health treatment. I can vouch.
Right.
Inside the psychologist's office, we see her follow Helen into her office and slam the door behind them.
I can't take this anymore, Helen. 6 months. 6 months of therapy. You're not 1 pound lighter. And we are still talking about Madeline Ashton.
Do you think I enjoy talking about Madeline Ashton?
Do you think I enjoy it? I don't know how many different ways. I can tell you this. Madeline Ashton has nothing to do with you anymore. You have to tell yourself she doesn't even exist. For you to have a life, for any of us to have a life, you have to forget about her. You have to erase her from your mind. You have to completely eliminate any trace of...
You're right.
What?
You're absolutely right. I don't know why I didn't see it before. I have to eliminate Madeline.
That's it. Eliminate all the...
And I should get in shape, even though that has nothing to do with my mental health.
It is your choice what you do with your body, my darling.
Maybe lose a few pounds, but I don't have to.
Exactly.
Get in shape, lose a few pounds, or not.
All
Was
bodies are
lost in
valid.
translation before. Is doing great. All bodies are good bodies.
Eliminate Madeline.
Her body can go.
Yeah. Exactly.
We cut to the exterior of Beverly Hills that day, or by day. A messenger on a moped puts down the street in an exclusive section of Beverly Hills, clutching an envelope in his hand. He passes exquisitely manicured estates, all of them protected by heavy wrought iron security bars that line their front yards and driveways. He stops in front of one such estate and rings at the gate. Another legend. Beverly Hills, 7 years later. We cut to the interior of a mansion. Rose, 12 years older, carries a breakfast tray smoothly up this mansion's central staircase to the second floor. The breakfast is simple: yogurt, an apple, some tea, and 2 surprise nutcakes. A messenger's envelope is also on the tray. Now we have a chance to read the name written on the front. Madeline Ashton Menville. Hyphenated. We cut to the inside of Madeline's room. Madeline is asleep in bed, her face tied back by triangles of plastic that prevent her facial muscles from relaxing. She's not horizontal, but now almost sitting up with her head rigid, resting on a hard cushion. By this point, Madeline's pushing 50 from the wrong side, but she's kept herself in excellent condition. Her plastic surgeon was a genius. Rose comes silently into the room and deposits the breakfast tray next to the bed. She puts on some soft chamber music. Madeline wakes up as if on cue. She opens her eyes very wide and strokes her neck languidly with a gloved hand. Rose goes to the drapes. I should really just, sometimes I think I just don't know the word, and so I say it. Madeline puts on the eyelid.
All right.
Rose opens the drapes. The room is invaded by sunlight.
Good morning, madam. You look absolutely marvelous.
Aren't you forgetting something?
Today is Thursday, madam. I thought only...
Never mind. I think from now on, I want you to say it every morning.
Very well. Oh, madam, you look younger every day.
Thank you, Rose.
Rose goes to the door. Madeline picks up the envelope on the tray and opens it.
What's this?
Your tickets for Helen Sharp's reception tonight, they just came.
Madeline pulls out 2 large, ornate tickets.
Table assignments. Clever little witch. Forever Young, a new beauty book by Helen Sharp.
Oh, I like that title.
How about Forever Young and Eternally Fat? You like that one too, Rose?
She turns and looks at the vast expanse of unslept-in bed next to her. And she looks at Rose.
I find it hard to believe he got up early and made his half of the bed.
No, madam.
She looks up and points to the ceiling. Madeline sighs.
Again.
We cut to the inside of the third floor. Rose carries another tray upstairs, this one even simpler. A Bloody Mary and a bottle of aspirin. She opens the door to the third floor of the house, revealing it to be a spacious loft with an enormous skylight in the middle of the cathedral ceiling. It looks like someone's sanctuary. There's a pool table, a television, an easy chair, and a wet bar. On the table next to the comfy chair, a framed picture of Madeline and Ernest on their wedding day fights for space with empty glasses and booze bottles. Someone's feet are on the chair, but coming from the wrong direction. Following the body down, we see Ernest lying on the floor where he passed out in last night's clothes. Unlike Madeline, he does look older. He looks slimed. He looks, frankly, like a wreck. A beeper on his belt beeps away, but he sleeps on peacefully. Rose shuts off his beeper, checks the number, and wakes him by setting the cold Bloody Mary glass on his forehead. He moans, opens his eyes, and looks up at her.
Is this an angel I see before me?
Dr. Mimple, how sweet.
Not you, Toots.
He closes his hand around the drink, drags himself up into the easy chair, and takes a deep swallow. The drink has a strong, soothing effect, and his head seems to clear. There are a couple scalpels on the table next to him. He picks one up and plays with it idly.
Is it up yet?
Yes, sir. It's in the bath.
Ernest sighs and holds out the scalpel, sighting on a dartboard on the wall about 15 feet away. His hand is a drinker's hand, and it shakes so badly he can barely hold it straight. Zing! He tosses the scalpel. He misses wildly, thunking the scalpel into the wall a few feet from the board. In fact, the whole wall is peppered with holes, and the dartboard itself is like new.
Your beeper was beeping, sir. Mr. Franklin again.
Ernest sighed. We cut to the inside of the mansion foyer by day. Ernest comes down the stairs from the third floor, wearing a wrinkled jacket and tie. He looked better when he was still asleep. He looks both ways and starts down the halls. Madeline comes out of her room at the same time, now fully dressed. She looks up as the two of them meet at the head of the stairs.
Oh, it's you.
Fine, thank you, darling. Like a rock.
Well, you're dressed. Special occasion?
Work.
Cool.
Rose appears at the bottom of the stairs. Madeline speaks to her as she and Ernest descend.
We're leaving for the dinner around 8, Rose. I'll need the masseuse and the whole team no later than 4.
But madam, tonight's my night off.
I'm sure you'll work it out. You're a wonder.
Dinner? What dinner?
You know perfectly well. Helen Sharp's book party.
A brief look of genuine happiness crosses Ernest's face, but he immediately wipes it away.
Oh, do we have to?
She sent table assignments. You're with the VIPs and I'm with the SOBs.
Oh, Helen would never do anything.
Watch your step with her, understand? If there's one thing I won't tolerate, it's infidelity.
We cut to the inside of a beach house. A woman's fingernails run down a man's muscular, well-tanned back, leaving long white streaks behind. Madeline, supine, is making love with Dakota, a stud in his late 20s, in a small beach cabana. Madeline's style is theatrical, grandiose, vocal. Dakota's movements give the distinct impression he is just completing work. Madeline reaches a climax. Dakota rolls off of her. She lies still, gasping for air and staring at the ceiling. He pulls on a pair of shorts, goes to the window, and stretches as the afternoon sun slants across his sweaty body.
Thank God you were here. I know we are supposed to see each other tonight, but this Helen thing has me an absolute wreck. I bet she holds a grudge. I'm sure she does. She always resented my success with men ever since school.
Dakota is ignoring her completely, as he's at a mirror now, examining his hip where he has found some excess fat.
Where did this come from?
He starts to do hip exercises.
Oh, I don't know. Out of her own insecurity, I suppose. But is it my fault? Is it my fault I look the way I do and she looks the way she does? Is that a reason to hate me?
You work and you work and you work.
And people dump on you. Exactly. She's made fun of me. Her and her friends, those miserable Park Avenue private school clenched tooth wolves.
Dakota checks his watch.
Look, you gotta.
Put it behind me. You're absolutely right. You see things so clearly. God, I feel so free here.
She sighs and rolls around in the sheets, but then stops and stares up at the ceiling in horror, at a giant mirror strategically placed over the bed.
Oh God, look at that. There's an obscene line running all the way from my eyelid to my cheekbone. How many times have I told you, no pillows?
He leaps out of bed with the sheet wrapped around her and scurries into the bathroom. Dakota rolls his eyes. We cut to the exterior of a parking lot. Ernest parks his car in the parking lot on what looks like a large estate. He takes his bag from the passenger seat and a belt from a bottle under the driver's and gets out. Mr. Franklin, a nervous man in a gray suit, is waiting for him at the edge of the parking lot and strides forward quickly when he sees Ernest, his face brightening.
Mr. Minville, thank God. I'm so sorry to call you at the last minute. You know, I hate the last minute.
Across the lush, well-kept grounds.
He's been completely prepared. Our top staff have all been summoned, and we're waiting for you.
Good. He's going to be just fine. Calm down.
Calm? I am calm. Everyone's calm here.
They round a corner, passing a sign. The first word is partially obscured by a column, but the rest is clear. Something lawn mortuary. What?
Probably forest.
We cut to the inside of the mortuary corridor. Ernest strides briskly down a corridor in the mortuary, flanked by Mr. Franklin and a growing retinue of assistants. Ernest is taking gown and gloves from the assistants as he walks, preparing for surgery.
Who is it? Someone?
Fernando Riveras, the actor, you know, the handsome one. Our reputation is really on the line this time. His family insists on an open casket, but
Is it bad?
he drowned in his hot tub. Very bloated, very swollen. He was making love to his new fiance, 18 from Cuba. He's got this expression of happiness on his face. It's completely inappropriate.
They've reached a set of double doors with the word embalming stenciled across them.
All right. We'll try to give him a little character, a little depth.
Depth? I don't know. People have to recognize him.
They sweep through the double doors and into the embalming room. Poor Fernando Rivas is visible for a second, laid out on a slab, grinning like an idiot. I'm gonna mispronounce this, I think.
Chagall.
That's what I was gonna say. Cool. We cut to the outside of Chagall's that day. It's a sleek, expensive salon in the middle of downtown Beverly Hills. Its front windows are smoked, making it impossible to see inside. An expensive car with an mad vanity plate pulls up in front, and Madeline steps out. A valet whisks the car into a garage as the doorman nods discreetly to Madeline and admits her to the salon. Two tourists walking down the sidewalk try to sneak a look inside, but the doorman closes the door quickly behind Madeline, blocking their view. Inside Chagall's, customers receive haircuts, facials, and the like. Madeline comes up to the reception desk, where a svelte woman in a trim business suit greets her.
Good afternoon, Miss Ashton.
How are you? 3 o'clock with Anna?
Yes, I know. You can go down.
She pushes a button below her desk, and a small gate buzzes. Madeline pushes it open and steps behind the reception desk to a tiled mirror wall. A security guard pushes a button in the wall, and an elevator door opens. Madeline and the guard step inside. We cut to the inside of the lower level. The elevator doors open. This is an exclusive, elegant place. All black leather and white carpet. Everything is soft and soothing. Not one hairdryer screams, not one gossipy voice whines. Just here and there are the low, reassuring murmurs of beauty therapists. The security guard leads Madeline back into the depths of the lower level. They walk a long, twisting hallway that has private rooms off each side. Madeline glances inside one of the rooms. A middle-aged man reclines in a black leather examination chair. An IV stand on either side of him, a plastic bag hanging from each. One of the bags contains a deep red liquid, the other a thick, deep blue one. And suddenly we have recreated the Matrix. The blue is being pumped into the man's left arm. The red is being drawn out of his right. We catch only a glimpse before the door is shut in our face. We cut to the inside of a treatment room. Madeline is having a heated discussion with Anna, her beauty therapist, who is in her early 20s. A video camera in one corner of the ceiling monitors their conversation.
Do you have any idea how much money I've spent here over the years? A fortune, I can assure you.
I'm sorry, a plasma separation is a very traumatic process for the body. Our policy clearly prohibits more than one in a 6-month period.
So, it's been nearly that long.
Miss Ashton, if you had one 3 weeks ago, I can't give you one now. How about a nice collagen buff instead? You want a collagen buff?
A collagen buff? You might as well tell me to wash with soap and water. Tonight is important to me.
I could do your makeup myself. You know,
Makeup is pointless. It doesn't do anything anymore. You're not listening to me. You don't even care. Sit there with your 22-year-old skin and your tits like rocks, and you laugh at me, and you...
She realizes how she sounds and catches herself.
I could pay you extra. You know what I mean? On a personal basis. If that's what you're looking for, money is no object. It means nothing to me.
Anna gasps, looking over Madeline's shoulder. Madeline turns. Jean-Paul Chagall, ageless, continental, the ultimate expression of sophistication, stands in the doorway to the room. He's elegant as hell, dressed in a black silk suit with a gold flower lapel pin we can't even notice.
Monsieur Chagall.
Leave us alone, Anna.
The therapist hurries out. Chagall closes the door behind her and looks at Madeline, saying nothing for a moment.
I suppose I should apologize. I
am very sensitive to your torment.
Excuse me?
Unfortunately, we are mere mortals here. We are restricted by the laws of nature.
He looks at her, his right eye fluttering. He could be winking, or it could be a tick, but it's definitely odd.
Well, what more could one expect?
That depends. I couldn't help but overhear your joke about money being no object.
That wasn't a joke.
I see. Have you heard of Lisa von Ruman?
No.
Of course you haven't. Very few have. Only a select group. She may be able to help you.
He pulls a business card from his shirt pocket and holds it out to Madeline.
This is her address. She accepts callers day or night.
Madeline reaches out to take the card, but he pulls it back with a word of warning.
A very select group, you understand.
Sure.
He takes the card, Chagall smiles.
I'm glad this happened to be session. We'll be seeing more of you.
His eye starts that winking thing again, and then he turns and leaves. Madeline shakes her head, tears the card in half, and drops it in her purse.
Weirdo.
We cut to the outside on the street. Ernest drives into the parking lot of Dominic's, a friendly-looking bar on the outskirts of Beverly Hills. Dominic's is a warm bar, an intimate place, all polished woods and heavy brass railings. At one end of the bar itself, a drunk, long-haired, bearded man slumps over a drink, semi-comatose. He looks like a permanent fixture. Ernest comes in and slides onto one of the bar stools. He runs his hands affectionately over the bar top. Tony, the bartender, is a friendly woman in her 40s and sees him.
Hey, Mr. M.
How are you, Tony?
Can't complain. Yourself?
Could. Won't.
Tony laughs genuinely. Ernest smiles for the first time today, and they launch into what seems like a very familiar exchange.
What can I get you?
Fill a glass with scotch.
I got some Jose Cuervo with a little ice to wake it up.
But not wide awake.
Tony smiles and grabs a tumbler. She scoops up 2 cubes with the glass in one hand and upends a scotch bottle with the other. As she works, Ernest's eyes mist over with emotion. He watches Tony's, I wouldn't know how to pronounce that, ballet movements, clearly in love with the crock of the scotch cap, the swish of the liquid, the pop of the ice. She slides the drink down the bar to him with a flourish, and it nestles into his palm.
One drowsy scotch with a little tequila and some peanuts. You want some peanuts?
Pretzels, I think.
Just open the bag.
Out of nowhere, she produces a dish of pretzels. Ernest smiles. He toasts the drunk at the end of the bar, who doesn't respond. Ernest drinks anyway. He closes his eyes as he swallows, deeply soothed. Suddenly, the peace of the bar is shattered by an unmistakable voice. Madeline's voice.
What are you doing here?
Ernest flinches reflexively at the sound. He turns and looks up to the TV above the bar. One of Madeline's old movies is playing, the one Helen watched earlier. Young Madeline has returned home in evening clothes and is about to be killed by the intruder. Tony goes to turn it off.
Wait a second.
Tony looks up and recognizes Madeline on the screen.
Oh, hey, look! Dark windows!
Ernest watches, a look of longing on his face, as the intruder strangles Madeline. She screams and dies.
You can turn it off now.
Tony does.
So how's that wife of yours? She's one in a million, isn't she?
She doesn't love me anymore.
But let's face it, there's plenty more where that came from.
I should leave her.
You have every right. Fuck that bitch.
But I took a vow, till death do us part. And when you sink as low as I have, your word is all you have left.
And I admire you for that.
Ernest looks up at her gratefully. He slides a $100 bill across the bar to her. She slides it back to him.
Sympathies. It's on the house.
Tony, who has been wiping the bar with a towel, wipes down near the drunk. She lifts his head, wipes under it, and sets it back down gently on a little pile of cocktail napkins. Ernest smiles.
You know something? I envy him. He's really got it all. No wife, no obligations, nobody to answer to, no wife, no possessions, and no wife
Come on, Dr. M, there's got to be a bright side.
You think so? I'm old, Tony, before my time. I gave other people youth, but I wasted my own life with lousy choices. All I really want is to be able to start the whole darn thing again. But that just doesn't happen. You tell me, where's the bright side in that?
Tony looks at him, thinking, truly saddened.
You still love her, don't you?
Ernest looks up at her. He doesn't answer, just finishes his drink. He signals for another and she fills his glass. He drinks that one too. She looks at him, still waiting for an answer.
Yeah,
He looks at the drunk again.
lucky bastard.
We cut to inside the Menville mansion at night. Madeline comes down the stairs, stunningly dressed, definitely not with gym shorts, and with an accent. Rose descends behind her, trying to adjust something in the back of Madeline's dress.
What are you doing? Stop touching me.
The label is showing.
Don't just stand there. Fix it.
I would have left you years ago if I wasn't such a masochist.
But you are, Rose. You are a masochist. This is a dream job for you.
Rose sighs and starts to fix the label again.
I refuse to feel sorry for you, Rose. When you have something for me to feel sorry about, please let me know. When you're 8 years old and your father walks out and leaves you and your mother in the Oakwood Trailer Park in Piscataway, New Jersey.
Rose, who has obviously heard the story before, mouths the last few words along with Madeline before she cuts herself off as an upstairs door opens, and Ernest comes out of their bedroom. Madeline looks at him. He looks pretty disheveled, with little pieces of bloody toilet paper stuck to his face. Madeline shakes her head as he comes down.
Ernest, all dressed up. Once again, you intend to be the life of the party. I'm so proud. What is this obsession you have with embarrassing me? I buy you things. Why don't you wear them? I'm not going.
Okay,
No, you're not going.
fine.
He turns and starts back up the stairs.
Oh no, you're coming. You're coming. If poor Helen insists on humiliating herself, the least we can do is be there to watch. Forever young, bright, and eternally fat.
Sounds good to me. I think eternally fat. We cut to the inside of a limo. Ernest and Madeline ride in the back of a limo as it pulls up in front of a crowded, expansive restaurant. They're both looking out their windows, lost in their own thoughts. But there's a strange sound in the car. It's Ernest, who breathes loudly. No special reason. He's just a loud breather. And in a quiet moment like this, it really gets to Madeline. She tries to bite her tongue, but I want to say, the thing says can't, but I feel like doesn't.
Could you please stop breathing?
Before he can respond, valet Parker pulls their doors open, and Madeline steps out, leaving her comment for Ernest to interpret. Ernest gets out and joins Madeline as they head into the restaurant, and she notices the crowd.
Jesus, what did she do? Hire extras?
We cut to inside the restaurant. It's been rented out for a private party and is packed with fashionable guests. Copies of a hardcover beauty book called Forever Young by Helen Sharp are prominently displayed here and there. Madeline makes a grand entrance, Ernest in tow.
She must have spent her entire trust fund on this.
There's an old woman near the door, 80 or so. Madeline goes to her warmly.
Oh, Helen, darling, how are you?
Ernest pulls her away.
Knock it off.
Across the room, a dishy starlet turns to Jay Norman next to her, a young-looking 25, horn-rimmed glasses, anonymous suit.
Jay, is that someone?
Sure, that's Madeline Ashton. She was a big star in the 60s.
Really? What was she in?
What are you kidding? Uptown Lover, Dark Windows, Nobody's Bride.
Oh, her. I thought she was dead. What's she done lately?
Complain? Sue people? Love Boat?
Yeah. Who are her agents?
I am.
Over at the bar, Ernest leans, a scotch glass growing from his hand. He notices a good-looking middle-aged woman next to him, smiles, and gives a little wave. The middle-aged woman notices but pointedly ignores Ernest, chatting with two women. As the women turn to walk off, the middle-aged woman pauses and speaks quietly to Ernest.
Sorry, Mr. Menville. If they know I know you, they know why, you know?
I know. How are you, Mel?
Mel taps the underside of her taut chin.
Pretty good after 7 years, huh? And the implants. I can still bounce quarters off of them. You're a genius. Or you are a genius. You were a genius. I don't know what you're doing.
On the other side of the room, Madeline comes up behind Jay Norman, looping an arm through his.
Madeline, I was just coming to talk to you.
Madeline looks to the starlet.
Can I borrow him for a second?
Not waiting for a response, she spins Norman away behind a potted palm and speaks to him urgently.
Why haven't you?
I did call you back twice. Your machine wasn't on.
Oh, I'll have to speak to Rose about that. Did you hear anything about the Rogers film?
I wouldn't get my hopes up. What did you decide about Hollywood Squares?
I'm having second thoughts. Can you get me Center Square?
Norman shakes his head.
Connie Stevens has it. She's part of a package, but Charlie Weaver's old corner square is free. We could get that. We could make that a reality for you.
Which corner?
Lower left, it's a fantastic square.
Why can't I have upper?
Let me talk to Mike.
Over at the bar, the middle-aged woman is gone, and Ernest is speaking to Mrs. Adams, mid-50s.
I never got a chance to tell you before. You know, with all the preparations, but you did a really spectacular job with Aunt Esther.
Oh, thank you.
Her color, her tone, you even brought out her cheekbones.
Well, that's my job.
Was almost ashamed to bury her.
That's sweet of you to say.
Can I ask what your secret is?
Spray paint.
He looks at him strangely, as if she misunderstood. Ernest nods enthusiastically.
See, dead skin just won't hold regular makeup. The pores are too dry. You have to use a palette knife and really grind the stuff in there. One day I thought to myself, what about mannequin paint? It's got its own chemical adhesive. It comes in an incredible variety of flesh tones and
He trails off, as Mrs. Adams is just staring at him as if he were a monster. Her orange juice arrives, she takes it and walks off, aghast. Madeline comes up as she leaves. She looks around, irritated.
What is this, a joke? She's not even here.
look over there.
He points toward the front door, where someone is making a hell of an entrance. They just see the top of a head moving through the crowd, and then a hand that rises up and turns one lazy circle in the air, acknowledging all with the gesture. The band, a discreet string quartet, immediately strikes up their version of Forever Young. Madeline and Ernest watch the figure until it stops in the middle of the crowd. In a moment, the crowd parts, letting them see the backside of a very good-bodied woman who the narration is saying. Madeline smiles wickedly, and then the woman steps out of the way, revealing
Thick
Helen Sharp.
woman.
She looks incredible. She's dropped some weight like she said she might want to. She's whipped herself into phenomenal shape, completely abandoned sweet in favor of sexy, and seems not one day older than she was 12 years ago, maybe even younger. But the most striking thing about Helen is a shining new sense of confidence. She wears a swooping, sexy gown that is held together off one shoulder with a gold flower pin. We may or may not notice. Madeline's jaw drops, and so does Ernest.
My God,
We're leaving.
don't be ridiculous, Madeline. Let's talk to her.
I'll talk to her.
Madeline takes a deep breath and crosses the room to Helen, who, to Madeline's great distress, is speaking with a gushy Jane Norman.
What do you want to know? We're absolutely at your disposal. Call me anytime, day or night. You have my numbers, don't you? Did I give you all my numbers?
I think so.
Norman looks up, sees Madeline coming, and quickly turns and walks away. Sorry. Madeline watches him go, hiding her irritation.
Sad.
Hell.
They kiss and fall into an embrace. As they do, Helen looks over Madeline's shoulder and sees Ernest standing forlornly on the other side of the room. He raises one hand in greeting, but Madeline spins Helen away by the arm.
I can't get over it, Hell, darling. 12 years. 12 long years. And look at you. You have a waist.
You haven't changed. I'm so glad you came. I didn't know if you would, but my PR woman said Madeline Ashton, she goes to an opening of an envelope.
Madeline forces, how could you force a gay laugh? But nothing comes out.
Those people can be so cruel. I almost fired her.
That was very sweet of you, dear.
The starlet comes up to Helen, awestruck, and shoves a copy of her book in front of her for Helen to sign.
Do you mind?
Helen, barely noticing, signs the book while talking to Madeline, who grinds her teeth.
How has it been?
Heaven. Absolute heaven. Ernest is like a dream.
I'm so happy for you too.
You know, there were times I thought to myself, I don't deserve this. I know it came at your expense, and that thought just makes me feel terrible.
Oh, please. It was so long ago, and what is he? A man. You didn't steal him. He went to you. It wasn't you. It was him.
He takes Madeline by the shoulders and speaks with the utmost sincerity.
I want you to know that I've never blamed you. Never.
We cut to the party that night. Ernest comes out of the bathroom, drink in hand. Helen comes up to him.
There you are. I was starting to think you were avoiding me.
Not at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Let's take a walk.
They head out two open doors to the garden beyond. Across the room, Madeline hurries up to a table with several copies of Helen's book arrayed on it. She grabs one of them and rips through it in angry disbelief.
A beauty book?
One of them, Mrs. Adams, spoke to Ernest earlier, are on either side of her, looking at a large cardboard standee of Helen and gushing over it.
Can you believe she's almost 50 years old?
You have got to be kidding me.
Girl, she look good.
Madeline snaps the book shut angrily. She turns and sees Ernest and Helen walking out toward the garden. She drifts across the room, following them from a discreet distance and keeping an eye on them. We cut to the garden. Ernest and Helen walk in the garden area behind the restaurant. They can see the party still in progress through the huge glass windows.
Isn't it strange, Ernest, seeing each other after so long?
Ernest hasn't really been listening, just looking at her with something close to adoration.
Wonderful. I mean, it's wonderful.
I thought I was never going to get over you. You should have seen me. I was such a mess. I even locked myself away somewhere upstate for months. And then I said to myself, it's time to rejoin society with gusto. Shape up. Lose a little bit of weight, but I started running 3 or 4 miles a day at first, and then 10, then 15, then 30, then 32, then 33, back down to 30, briefly, then up to 40, 45, 48.
So, a lot.
Right. A lot is my point. And the thing that kept me going was the thought of,
She turns and looks into the party, where she sees Madeline through the glass. She turns back to Ernest.
you.
Me?
Yes. Tell me everything about yourself. I hear the Menville Clinic's doing so well.
Oh, sure. It's like my own private oil well. We even opened a franchise in Paris. I'm semi-retired, though. I'm fully committed to the good life.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Why? What did I say? All I meant was life has turned out to be a great party.
You used to hate parties.
Oh, that's when I was old. Now, well, you should see me now.
He raises his glass in toast.
I don't know what to say. I didn't know you were so unhappy.
He looks at her. He hasn't had a slap of honesty like this in a while, and it melts him.
Never could fool you, could I?
I'm so sorry for you, Ernest. I heard about the kind of work you're doing now.
I'd sell my soul to operate again. I've wasted myself, Helen.
No, Ernest, she's wasted you. She married a brilliant surgeon and turned him into a surprise nutcake. I'm
Given
putting
the
my
irony
hands on
of
your
that
shoulders.
last statement, he does put her hands on his shoulders.
I want you to know I've never blamed you for leaving me. I always knew it was her. She's a woman, Ernest, from Newark, for God's sake.
Piscataway.
Exactly. I'm never going to forgive her for what she's done to you. Never.
He looks at her, overcome. In the distance, Madeline is visible through the glass doors to the party, still watching them. We cut to the inside of Ernest's closet that night. A close-up on a photo of Ernest and Helen, taken at least 15 years ago. They're standing on a pier somewhere in the shore. It's fall. They're dressed with scarves and sweaters, and the wind has blown color onto their cheeks. They look happy. They look young. Ernest sits at his dressing table at home, staring at the photo as he unbuttons his tuxedo shirt. He smiles faintly at the photo and then looks up at the mirror in front of him. He sees the ravages of the last 12 years, and his smile disappears. Off screen, he hears the faint sound of a bedroom door slamming. He gets up and leaves the room, still holding the photo. We cut to the mansion's hallway. Ernest hurries to the top of the stairs in time to see Madeline hurrying out the front door of the house, carrying an overnight bag, making no pretense. As she slams the front door behind her, Ernest looks back down at the photo in his hand. We cut to a beach cabana at night. Madeline hurries down a sidewalk to a small beach cabana and rings the door. Dakota opens the door shirtless. Madeline doesn't say a word, just slips into his arms and kisses him passionately. He kisses back, but there's reservation in it. Madeline senses it, pulls back.
What is it?
Nothing. I didn't know you were coming over.
Darling, we spoke.
Yeah, but you came this afternoon, and I thought, I didn't. Just give me a sec, will you?
Oh God, you're not alone.
What are you talking about? Of course I am. I'm completely alone.
A young woman's voice comes from off screen behind him.
Dakota?
Actually, completely isn't quite what I meant.
Madeline turns and walks away quickly.
Madeline, hey.
He follows her, grabs her by the arm, and turns her around.
How dare you make me feel cheap?
Madeline, I forgot. She's here to fix
Who is she? Who is this lump of meat?
that's what I'm trying to tell you. She's a friend of the.
Oh Christ, at least lie quickly.
I'm trying to. You gotta believe me. This is perfectly innocent.
Madeline looks over his shoulder. Far in the background, she catches a good glimpse of a naked woman walking across the room. Young, beautiful. Madeline looks back at Dakota, her anger completely replaced by humiliation. Thunder rumbles overhead. The storm is imminent.
Hey, I'm sick of this shit. You know that? I've been doing you a favor here.
A favor? I gave you. I
Yeah,
gave you.
Yeah, you gave, I gave, big deal. You know, the other day somebody told me we really look ridiculous together. How do you think that makes me feel? See, you never think of my feelings. Why don't you go find someone your own age, Madeline?
These words are to Madeline as bullets shot from a gun. She stares at him as the thunder crashes, right on top of them now, and the rain starts to pour down, soaking her. We cut to the exterior of a street. Right. Madeline is in her car, driving too fast and sobbing. The storm is really raging as she tools down Sunset Boulevard, barely making the curves. She looks up, catches sight of her mascara and her tear-streaked face in the rearview mirror. Horrified, she slams on the brakes. The car squeals to a stop in the middle of the road. Other cars honk and swerve past her as she dumps her purse, searching for a Kleenex to repair the damage. She finds one, but she also finds the two torn halves of the business card Jean-Paul Chagall gave her. Fascinated, she pieces them back together. We cut to the inside of Helen's room. Helen is in front of a mirror. She's messing with a strange little contraption, something like an eyedropper, filling it from a bottle marked menthol. Muted.
Damn it! I got into it too. I hate her, I hate her, I hate her, and where she goes, I follow, I follow, I follow.
The eyedropper filled, she holds it up to her eyes and squeezes each in turn. It blows a little puff of something into her eyes, and immediately tears flow down her cheeks. She looks up into the mirror, affecting a countenance of great distress.
Madeline, I have to speak to Madeline at once. Not bad.
She spritzes more stuff in her eyes.
Madeline, I have to speak to Madeline.
We cut to outside the von Roman's mansion. Madeline drives up the base of a long, winding driveway up in Hollywood Hills. She stops at a gate where two security guards in blue suits stand, radios in their ears and sunglasses at night, seemingly impervious to the rain. One of them steps to her car window. She rolls it down.
Hi, I know it's late, but I was passing by and just wondered if it might be possible to see Miss Von Rumen.
The guard says nothing, just stares at her through his sunglasses. He turns his head, checking out the inside of her car, but giving no indication he intends to let her pass.
I was given her card by
She holds up the two pieces of the torn business card. The guard, recognizing it, immediately steps back and waves to the other, who presses a button and opens the gate. Madeline drives through. As she starts to climb the driveway, she leans forward and squints through the windshield. A bolt of lightning flashes, illuminating the house at the top of the hill. Make that castle at the top of the hill. Liesel von Rumen's mansion is an enormous medieval thing, complete with turrets.
Jesus.
We cut to the exterior of the house. The impressive front door is opened by an athletic guy in his 20s. Madeline stands on the step, wearing sunglasses and a silk scarf that half hides her face, which has been washed clean of makeup by the rain.
Good evening. I hope it's not
Not at all, Miss Ashton. Leslie's expecting you.
she is.
Madeline looks
Mhm.
at him, confused, but smiles kindly enough, and she enters. We cut to the interior of the foyer that night. Madeline steps into the foyer, and the athletic guy closes the door behind her. She looks around the strange Gothic interior of the place.
Wait here, please.
He walks ahead down some stairs and into a darkened room. While Madeline waits, she hears a low humming sound from her left and turns to look. A light shines through a frosted window and a small door on the other side of the foyer, a descending light, as in an elevator door. As Madeline watches, the door swings open and two large, bizarre, what would make a bizarre dog? Two large, bizarre dogs trot out purposefully. They trot across the foyer and disappear down the stairs as well. The athletic guy reappears at the top of the stairs.
Right this way.
He goes back down the stairs. Madeline follows him. We cut to the interior of the lounge. The athletic guy leads Madeline across the floor of an enormous Gothic ballroom with an incredible view of most of Southern California. On the other side of the room, another young man murmurs softly, leaning forward toward a woman seated on a sofa in a dark part of the room, her back to us. There are 3 or 4 of these beefy guys throughout the house. It's hard to be precise. They all look alike. The bizarre dogs are also with the woman, poised on either side of her, unmoving sentinels. The athletic guy leads Madeline over. As they approach, the woman turns around. Liesel von Rumens is an attractive woman. Ageless, firm body, beautiful, clear, tight skin. She is baroquely dressed with huge chunks of jewelry and speaks with an unplaceable European accent. She smiles.
I'd hoped you'd come. Sit down.
She pats the sofa next to her and sends a fiery look to the young man sitting by her.
Make room for my friend, for Christ's sakes.
He and the athletic guy leave the room.
But keep your ass handy.
She winks at Madeline. Madeline moves a bit trepidatiously and sits next to her. Liesel observes her very closely. Madeline is uneasy.
Monsieur Chagall said that I.
May I say, I've always thought yours to be one of the most beautiful faces ever to grace the silver screen.
Oh.
And your husband, I can only say his reputation is unsurpassed.
Oh.
I just arrived in town. I follow the spring. I haven't seen autumn or winter in years. They aren't for us. We're people of the spring, you and I, aren't we?
Listen, I'm not really sure why I'm here.
You're scared as hell. Of yourself. Of the body you thought you knew.
I beg your pardon.
Liesel reaches out and takes off Madeline's sunglasses.
I'm the one who understands. I'm the one who knows your secret.
Madeline looks at her, surprised and intrigued.
Who are you?
Something of an expert.
She runs her finger down the skin of Madeline's face.
You had a young man, worthless and empty, but he makes you feel in your prime, more alive than the day before. You need him as one needs a gadget to measure blood pressure or heartbeats, to tell you you're alive.
To tell me I'm alive.
Now he goes, he leaves you. You can't feel your pulse, you see rings around your eyes. He's a symptom, dear, but he's not the problem.
Madeline, who was transfixed, seems to snap out of it.
I'm being silly. I don't know what you could possibly do to.
You'd be surprised.
We cut to the exterior of the Menville mansion that same night. As the rain pours down, Helen's car pulls up and parks at the curb. She gets out. Inside the mansion, we see Ernest hurrying down the main stairs, drink in hand. Someone's knocking frantically at the main door and he opens it. Helen, on the front step, dashes something into her purse as he opens the door and looks up at him, her face awash with tears.
Helen,
Madeline, I need to speak to Madeline at what?
she's not here.
Oh, thank God.
She throws her arms around Ernest in a tight embrace. He's a little taken aback, but doesn't fight it.
How do you get in? I didn't hear the gate.
I didn't want you to hear, Ernest. Ask me to go. Ask me to leave this house immediately.
You just got here.
I know. It's crazy. It took me a minute, a glimpse, and I was right back where I started.
Ernest looks truly confused.
Don't pretend you're not aware of it. You're a powerful sexual being, Ernest.
I am?
You are.
I am.
You've always been. If I never could tell you before, it was just because I was the sort of girl who couldn't say sexual without blushing. Well, now I can.
Helen pulls back far enough to look into his eyes.
Sexual. Sensual. Sexy. Sex. 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 I couldn't resist. Sorry.
Ernest's drink slips from his hand and hits the floor with a thud, so I hope it's carpet, because otherwise that'd be shattering. And we cut to inside the von Rumen's mansion. Liesel is gently stroking Madeline's hand.
So warm, so full of life, and already it ebbs away from you. This is life's ultimate cruelty. It offers us a taste of youth and vitality, and then makes us witnesses of our own decay.
Well, it's the natural law.
Liesel reaches out and creaks open an ornate wooden case that sits on the table in front of them. An old hand-tooled dagger and a beveled glass vial are sheathed inside.
Screw the natural law.
What's that?
What you came for.
She reaches into the case and pulls out the single vial. It has a silvery liquid inside, thick, strange, like mercury that seems to shimmer in the light. Madeline stares at the vial, transfixed.
A touch of magic in a world obsessed by science. A tonic, a potion, a surprise nutcake.
What does it do?
How old would you guess that I am?
Oh, I don't. I mean, I really like
Go on, and don't try to flatter me.
38, 37.
I'm 71 years old.
She smiles, looks back proud.
This is what it does. Stops the aging process dead in its tracks and forces it into retreat. Drink that potion and you will never grow even 1 day older again. Don't drink it and continue to watch yourself rot.
We cut to the Menville mansion. Ernest and Helen are on the sofa, necking passion.
We have to stop.
Yes, we do.
But they don't.
Really, Ernest?
But they still kiss. When things start to get really heated, Helen pulls away and stands up, smoothing her hair, trying to regain her composure. Sorry. Steph just threw a bone trying to distract Raz and hit her in the face. I couldn't like.
Raz, gain your composure.
Mission accomplished.
Please,
Trying
right.
to regain her composure.
You're good. Please don't be angry at me, Ernest. I'm fighting it as hard as I can, but just look at you.
The position Ernest is sitting in makes his stomach rather pronounced. He sucks it in.
She's already destroyed your career. Now she's breaking your heart, stealing your pride, flaunting her lovers all over town.
You know about that?
Everybody does, Ernest. At the party, people spoke of nothing else.
Oh, God. Oh, Helen. I'm so ashamed. How can you love me? I've been so weak. I should have divorced her years ago.
He stands and points a shaky finger at her.
I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to go down to the courthouse tomorrow and file for a divorce. No, Monday. I'll do it on Monday.
Ernest.
Tuesday at the latest.
Divorce, Ernest? In California? That's exactly what she wants you to do. You have no talent for poverty. You can't let her get away with that.
Ernest sits, deflated, his plans snatched away from him.
Then there's nothing I can do.
Helen comes back to him. She sits close, kissing him between her words.
Yes, there is, Ernest. We have not only the right, but the duty to regain what is ours. And we will, even if it means breaking every rule and every commandment.
Yes.
She strokes his leg and kisses his ear, whispering into it.
He has to go, Ernest.
You're right.
He has to disappear.
Okay.
Helen sits up and pushes him away, leaving him in the mid-pucker.
You're not listening to me. My therapist showed me once and for all that for us to have a life, Madeline has to.
Ernest finally understands the implication of her words, and his jaw drops.
Die? Did he actually say that?
Well, first of all, she.
Whatever. Did she say die?
Well, not exactly, but I could totally read between the lines.
Ernest sits again, both relieved and disappointed.
So she didn't say it.
Helen takes his face in her hands again.
You said it, darling.
We cut to the von Rumen's mansion. Madeline is studying the potion, holding it up to the light, its refracted beams playing across her face. Liesel hovers over her shoulder. How much is it?
The sordid topic of coin. I'm afraid that's not so simple. The cost, you see, is different for everyone.
Well, for me, how much?
Liesel looks at her, studying her. She takes a pen and writes a figure on a piece of paper. It seems to have a lot of zeros. She finishes and holds the paper in front of Madeline. Madeline stifles a gasp. Her face suddenly clears, as one who has just realized they're being conned.
Well, thank you so much. I really should be going.
Sit down.
Madeline, surprised, sits. Liesel takes the potion and uncorks it.
Hold out your hand.
Madeline looks at Liesel for a second. Decides, hey, what the hell? and holds out her hand. Moving like lightning, Liesel grabs her hand with one hand and reaches into the wooden case with the other, whipping out the dagger. She slits a tiny opening in the pad of Madeline's index finger.
Ouch!
She tries to pull her hand away, but Liesel holds tight. She dips the dagger into the potion, picking up just a drop, and lets it fall into Madeline's cut. She loosens her hold, and Madeline snatches her hand away.
What are you, crazy? You.
She stops in the middle of her sentence, letting out an involuntary gasp. Before her very eyes, her hand begins to change, to smooth out. Networks of lines disappear. The skin seems to replenish itself. In a few seconds, it's the hand of a much younger woman. She holds it up next to the other unchanged hand. The difference is incredible.
Check okay.
Fine.
Madeline dives into her purse and comes up with her checkbook. She can't move fast enough as she fumbles with the pen, never wanting to take her eyes off her name.
You must make me a promise. The secret we share must never become public. You may continue your career for 10 years, 10 years of perfect, unchanged beauty. But at the end of that time, before people become suspicious, you must disappear from public view forever. You can retire, you can stage your own phony death, or you can, as one of my clients said simply, want to be alone.
Madeline looks at her, astonished, as she figures out the reference.
You mean she's.
Liesel raises a hand. Silence. Madeline smiles.
Wow, okay. Yeah, no problem. I agree. Whatever.
She writes out her check frantically and tears it from the book, shoving it across the table to Liesel. Liesel smiles and solemnly slides the vial with the potion in it across the table to Madeline. Madeline takes it. She gives it a little sniff, and she holds it up reverently, raising it in toast.
Well, bottoms up.
She upends it and swallows it in one gulp.
Now a warning.
Now a warning.
Take care of yourself. You and your body are going to be together for a long time. Be good to it.
She reaches out and pins something onto Madeline's lapel. It's a tiny flower pin made of gold, with little bursts of colored petals.
Siempre viva!
We cut to the mansion hallway. Madeline is led out by the same athletic guy who admitted her. She follows behind him, headed for the door. Halfway there, she stops, feeling strange. She turns to a mirror on the wall next to her. As she watches, she undergoes an amazing transformation. The crow's feet at the corners of her eyes smooth out with a little hissing sound. Smile lines at the side of her mouth disappear with a pop. Her skin smooths, tightens. She takes off 15 years as we're looking at her. And that's not all. Her butt seems to lift and define itself. Her breasts do the same, regaining old form and tone. An enormous grin spreads across her face and she flushes with color. She turns to the athletic guy, the only one around with a look of absolute incredulity on her.
I just. Did you. I'm a girl.
I think we could bottle that response and to some more people. I like it. The athletic guy raises a finger to his lips, smiling knowingly, devilishly. We return to the Menville mansion. Ernest is pacing in front of Helen, who sits on the couch. He has a scotch glass that he continually refills.
Let's go over the plan one more time.
Okay.
As they talk, we see flashes of their plan in action, but we see it as Ernest sees it. Perfect, smooth, and elegant. Every step flowing perfectly.
Tonight, while she's asleep,
We cut to inside the dining room. Ernest, wearing gloves and looking uncommonly suave, carefully takes 3 crystal glasses from the dining room china cabinet.
you take one of each kind of glass, highball, wine, and water from the dining room cabinet.
Inside the living room, Helen hands Ernest a small vial filled with white powder.
Then you take this Narcanol.
In the dining room, we see Ernest in a white lab coat, dumping a little white powder from the vial into each glass, kicking up a small cloud.
And dust each glass lightly with it. Tomorrow, I'll call Madeline and say when it comes, say goodbye, and that I have a present for her.
And then we cut to the inside of the foyer. Madeline is on the phone, dressed casually in workout gear.
Fine. Why not come for dinner?
We cut back to the dining room. Madeline is at the table, a glass of water in her hand.
And at dinner, no matter what she has to drink, the Narcanol will be in the glass.
Madeline slumps over, her head hitting the table with a clunk. Ernest and Helen, also at the table, ping their glasses and
I've used the phony name to register.
we see the inside of the living room, where Helen hands Ernest a tiny cellular phone.
This cellular phone, because it's the 90s and that's what we call it, which you will use to call the police.
We cut to the outside of Mulholland Drive at night. Ernest, the picture of civic responsibility, is talking on the cellular phone, standing next to Madeline's car, which is parked in a turnout on Mulholland.
There's some drunk woman up here on Mulholland, swerving dangerously close to the edge.
We cut to the inside of a police dispatch. A supervisor leans over the police officer answering Ernest's call.
Kelsey, are you there?
I'm here. Dispatch a unit up there before she kills somebody.
We cut to inside Madeline's car. Ernest and Helen dump alcohol all over Madeline's car, chucking the empties in the back.
You wedge her foot down on the accelerator.
Ernest wedges an empty bottle between the steering wheel and Madeline's leg.
Drop the car into gear.
Ernest drops the car into gear. Back at
Oh, Danny, we can't hear you again. You're on mute.
Are we back?
There we go.
Sorry, it was my fault.
Every time the lady gets up, my computer wants to follow
My
All right.
bad.
her. In front, Ernest jams one last whiskey bottle into Madeline's hand.
And then we'll send her on her way.
Helen elegantly kicks the jack out from under the rear bumper. The car drops, the tires squeal, and the car takes off. Ernest tears away from her and goes to the fireplace.
What are we saying? We can't go through with it.
She's killing you, Ernest. It's self-defense.
Ernest looks to his right, where several ornate shotguns are kept in a glass case. They gleam a little in the light.
Self-defense.
Tomorrow, then?
Tomorrow.
And he rushes back into her arms. We cut to outside the Menville mansion. Madeline pulls up. Were she not obsessed with looking at her own image in the car's rearview mirror, she'd be able to see Helen as she gets into her car and drives away from the house. We see Madeline enter the mansion and throw her keys and bag on the front table. She pauses to admire herself in the foyer mirror, then heads upstairs, sweeping past Ernest, who's in the living room pacing. He looks up, but she barely notices his existence. He watches as she disappears upstairs. We cut to inside Madeline's room. We see Madeline climbing out of her still soggy clothes. Her phone rings and she picks it up.
Hello. Well, you've got a lot of nerve calling me after. Oh, knock it off. I just have one thing to say to you. I had a little too much to drink tonight and I overreacted. It was a ridiculous display of emotion. Particularly, I'm sure you'll agree, over someone like you. That's all. What? Oh, please. You don't mean that. Who do you think you're talking to? Well, aren't you presumptuous? What makes you think I'll forgive you? I don't know. I have to warn you, you may be too old for me very soon. You'll fall in love, make a scene. What? Say that again. You do what?
She hears a sound and turns. Ernest is standing at the door to the room, staring at her, livid, the glass of scotch spilling from one hand. He's heard every word.
Unspeakable.
She kicks the door shut in his face.
Fine, I'll be there in 20 minutes. Just try not to humiliate yourself.
10 minutes later, Madeline steps out of her closet, her hair pulled back in a seductive fashion, and her body poured into a sexy dress. She goes to the mirror and looks at herself in wonder.
My God, it fits.
She giggles and opens the door to the room. Ernest is still standing in the hallway, hate in his eyes.
Unspeakable.
Yes, Ernest, unspeakable. Have another drink and go to bed.
He breezes past him and into the hall. Ernest turns and hurries in front of Madeline, cutting her off at the top of the stairs.
You'd like that, wouldn't you? Me to drink myself to an early grave? Well, it's not going to happen. It's my money and I'm going to keep it.
What are you talking about?
You haven't worked in years, not a real job. Anything you had left, you owed me long ago. Your face owed me.
He squints at her face, studying her, and for a moment, his rage vanishes.
By the way, did you change your makeup?
She looks at him, decides it's not worth the explanation, and turns away.
Don't wait up.
She walks away, heading for the stairs.
Cheap.
Madeline stops dead in her tracks. She turns around.
What did you say?
I called you cheap, Madeline. A cheap little tramp who's every day less like a lady and more like a surprise nutcake.
There's a line in every marriage that can't be crossed. And Ernest just crossed theirs. And we all know which it was. Madeline is enraged.
Who do you think you're talking to? Who do you think you are? You're nothing but a rich failure.
Watch what you say. I don't have to take it anymore.
You'll take whatever I give you. You always have. You are pathetic, Ernest. You're a tragic, boozy clown. You're not really even a man anymore, are you? How long's it been? Long enough you're so afraid to not try anymore. That's how long.
Ernest is fuming. His face has gone completely red. He turns away from her and grips the railing, his fingers turning white with the tension.
Well, that's not good enough for me. I need a man, a real man, not some drunken undertaker who's just as dead below the belt or dead below the waist as his clients are. You.
Ernest turns and grabs Madeline around the throat, pressing his thumbs against her windpipe. His face is grim, set, his body rigid. He's a killer. Madeline chokes, gasps, and flails with her arms.
Cruel, vicious, loathsome.
They stagger about. Her arms knock over her face. Her fingers gouge his cheek. Still, his hold on her neck remains tight. He backs her over to the top of the stairs, and she speaks, a death gasp.
Ernest, please.
His eyes soften. His face washes over with awareness and reprehension at what he's doing. He releases his hold on Madeline, backs away, staring at his hands and at her horror.
Oh God. Oh, Madeline, darling, I'm so sorry.
She teeters on her feet, precariously balanced at the top of the stairs, her arms flailing but finding nothing to cling to.
Help me!
Ernest's eyes widen as he studies her delicate position. He looks behind her, down the steep, winding staircase. He looks down at her feet, barely balanced on her high heel.
Hurry, you miserable failure!
Cuts it off, reaching out just ever so slightly, jabbing his finger into the middle of her chest. The tiny impact is enough to tip her over, backwards, over the top of the staircase. For one brief moment, she is suspended there, like Wile E. Coyote.
Oh,
And then she's gone. She tumbles down the stairs, a long, hard, painful fall, in which she doesn't miss a single step. There are unmistakable crunching sounds, and finally, she lands in a grotesquely tangled heap of arms and legs at the bottom of the stairs. Ernest stands at the top, hands clutched at his mouth like a mischievous child. For a few seconds, nobody moves. Finally, Ernest summons his courage and starts down the stairs, timidly, one at a time, trying not to look at Madeline's still form. He reaches the bottom. Madeline's face looks up at him. Unfortunately, her body is lying face down. Her head is turned almost completely around, her neck certainly broken.
Oh my.
He bends down closer to her and moves his fingers along her neck near her jugular. He holds them there for a moment, searching for a pulse. He finds none.
Oh my.
He stands and backs a few unshaky steps away from her. He finds himself next to the liquor cart and hurriedly pours a glass of scotch, an entire 8-ounce glass. He drinks from it greedily. Bolstered by the liquor, he turns and walks back over to Madeline again. He checks her pulse a second time, then jerks his hand away and wipes his pants. She's plenty dead. He turns and walks across the room, trying to compose himself. Struck by an idea, he runs to the telephone cable. He pulls a scrap of paper from his pocket, checks the number, and dials frantically. While he's waiting for someone to answer, he looks apprehensively across the room toward Madeline's corpse. It's not going anywhere. He turns around, not able to look at it.
Suite 1110, please. Helen, it's me, Ernest Menville. I did it. I didn't think I'd be able to, but I pushed her down the stairs and she absolutely stone cold. And she was saying the most monstrous things and she's dead. And I did it. And I didn't think I could I think I could, but there was just this feeling inside me and I couldn't contain it. And we're free. But I'm afraid I'm going to burn in hell and her neck is broken and there's no pulse. And I pushed her down the stairs and she's dead.
We cut to the inside of Helen's hotel room. She's she's dressed in jeans and a Just Do It t-shirt, running on a treadmill, the phone to her ear. For a moment,
Which part
she
of the
says nothing.
Oh. Except
Finally,
I interrupted you. Which part of the plan were you clear on?
we cut to the
we're not
Menville
you-
living room, and Ernest is still on the phone.
No, Helen.
Because we went over it like 3 times.
No, you don't understand. This is better. It was an accident. At least it'll look like one.
Have you called the police?
No, I called you first thing.
We see the inside of Helen's hotel room. Oh, Throughout the following, we get a chance to see more of Helen's hotel suite. One corner of it, A small sitting room looks like the apartment of an assassin. There are blow-ups of Madeline all over the walls. Not just publicity shots, but shots that look like they were taken without Madeline's knowledge. Coming out of the market, getting into her car, jogging. There is a calendar on the wall with dates marked off, and one 2 days from now, with a large red circle around it. Most disturbing, on a mirror over the desk, the word eliminate is written in lipstick. Helen herself is still on the phone, trying to be patient with Ernest.
Ernest, you poor sweet thing. If the police check the phone records, don't you think it'll be unusual that you called me before you called them?
Narrator checking in, still to let you know that Ernest is still on the phone.
Oh God, you're right.
Of course I'm right.
I'd better call them now.
No, we have to decide what you're going to say first.
Well,
I'm thinking.
Ernest drums his fingers on the desk nervously, waiting for Helen to come up with something. He's sitting with his back to Madeline's corpse, but it is visible behind him. As he waits, something funny happens with Madeline's body. It moves. Just a twitch, really. It might not even have happened.
Okay, I've got it. Where's her body?
Ernest turns and looks at Madeline, who is still again.
at the foot of the stairs.
He turns back and Madeline twitches again.
Foot of the stairs. Good. Don't move her.
Behind Ernest, Madeline sits up.
As soon as we hang up, you'll call the police.
Okay.
While Helen and Ernest talk, Madeline, behind him, begins to disentangle herself from her own wreckage. She pulls a twisted leg over her head and brings it back down into place. She pries a limp wrist off the floor and lets it fall at her side.
You'll tell them you were on the phone with me when you heard a terrible scream. You turned around and saw Madeline fall down the stairs.
Right. Perfect.
Behind him, Madeline stands up, disoriented. She turns around so she is facing Ernest. Or so her face is facing Ernest anyway. Her head is still twisted completely around, so while she's looking at Ernest, her body is headed in the other direction. She blinks, not really seeming to get it.
Stick to that story. If they ever check the phone records, it'll just confirm what you told them.
Got it.
Madeline, facing Ernest, backs across the room toward him. He doesn't hear her.
One thing, though, what about the time of death? Do you think that could ever be used to prove that the phone call came first?
Madeline comes all the way up behind Ernest and stands there, staring down at him.
No, time of death can only be determined within a few hours. It's not an exact.
Ernest. He waves her off, not looking up.
Not an exact.
Ernest.
He waves her off again.
Not.
He stops, realizing the implication of hearing Madeline's voice. He turns around and his face goes completely pale.
You pushed me down the stairs.
Holy Jesus Christ.
In Helen's room, we see her holding the phone with both hands. However, the line has gone completely dead.
Ernest? Ernest!
We cut to the Menville living room. Ernest is backing away from Madeline in abject horror. She follows him, backing after him, looking very creepy.
You pushed me down the stairs.
Ernest keeps away from her, circling her, knocking lamps and picture frames over in an attempt to keep her at a distance.
Stay away from me.
You bet I will, animal, psycho,
Don't come near me.
wife pusher.
Don't come near me. Don't come near me or follow me. Don't come near me or follow me or talk to me.
I don't need to. I don't want to. I don't intend to. I just need to make a telephone call. You're in the shithouse now, pal.
She goes to the phone and reaches for it, but her arm goes the other way.
Madeline, look at yourself.
She looks down, confused, and finds herself looking at her own ass.
Ernest! My ass! I can see my ass!
There's something wrong with your neck.
Yes, I would say so. I would fucking say so.
She wanders around the room, backwards, in a daze.
Ernest, what's wrong with me?
The phone starts to ring, and they ignore it.
It's a dislocated neck. That's what it is. It could happen. I've never heard of it happening, but it could happen.
Madeline walks up to a chair. She turns around as one ordinarily would to sit, but now the front of her body is facing the chair. She tries to sit, but her knees don't bend that way. She turns around so her face is facing the back of the chair along with the backside of her body. Now she sits, her face looking at the back of the chair.
What the hell is going on?
Dislocated neck. You have a dislocated neck.
Well, fix it.
How?
Just do it.
Ernest swallows. He takes a deep breath, goes to her, and gingerly lays one hand on either side of her head. He pulls them away and backs off.
I can't.
Oh, for Christ's sake.
She grabs hold of her own head and with one powerful twist of her hands and a disgusting crunch, cranks it back around to the front. She blinks.
I think I need a doctor.
And intermission.
That's an intermission.
Y'all are
Yay.
killing it. So why don't we try to come back like right after 9 if that's good for everybody else? All right. I'm trying to see if I can
Works for me.
like share my yeah. I want to like share a tab to have the donate page up here. So let me see here if I can get that figured out. I'm not used to Zoom. Does it not let me share a screen?
You're a
Man.
co-host, so
Okay.
you should.
Is that what it says?
So, oh, here we go. I got it. I'm just on the wrong. Oh, we can't do tab. Oh, Chrome tab. Hey, look at me go. Figuring my life out. All right, there we go. So we'll be back. Let me put that back on at 9 p.m.
Intermission.
Yes.
We figured out what was going on. My earpods are a little bit too smart, and they could tell whenever she was walking away.
I had to
and
pee. I'm sorry.
Oh, understandable.
Get to have to pee. It just disconnected the audio when you did it. But I can take yours if that might help. Okay.
Yeah, I did test it. I checked it. Well, it fell out of my ear and it didn't disconnect. So
Welcome back, Ernest.
I'm having so much fun. I love this.
I was just telling her that like I've only seen this movie once, but I'm remembering all the things that I liked about it. Cause like I will be this person and I will openly admit to my weakness here, but I don't usually watch like older movies. It just like it takes a lot of convincing or a lot of bribery. One of the two.
I just realized
Um,
that you saying this is an older movie makes me feel really old.
Right there with
feels
you.
older to me. I don't know.
I want to say
But
the same thing.
to be fair, Danny doesn't think that any movie made before 2000 is a good movie that
Oh,
deserves to be
okay.
watched.
That's not what I say. I do not. I've never said that. I don't generally end up liking movies that were about like from.
No. I suggest a movie for us to watch, and their first question is it from this century? Motherfucker, you're not from this century.
That's true. That's very
Dennis.
true.
Also, your Liesel outfit was the best.
Oh yes, that was amazing.
Yes.
That
Thank you,
was
Yes.
Thank you,
on
Spirit
par
Halloween.
with so many good.
Austin is the MVP. This past
Oh,
semester.
Spirit Halloween, not even Party City.
Nope.
I love it.
and I actually sent the picture. It's funny, I forgot who said something about Tina from Bob's Burgers, but I actually sent a picture of me and it to my brother, and he said that's what I need to go as for Halloween this year. So I think
You
I'm gonna
should. You got the wig.
I know I need to find a blue skirt.
It's black skirt, blue shirt.
Oh, is it okay? Black skirt, blue shirt. That's right. Yeah. Well, that'll be easy then.
Soups,
Yeah.
vibes. You could do blue, like black shorts too, I'm sure, and get away with it if you're, not wanting the.
I need to be a purist. I want to wear a skirt.
I'm
See,
all for like adherence to the character, but I'm also all for buying things you can use again.
I mean, I might be able to use it again. You never know. I don't know. We'll have to
I mean, you could be Daria.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Absolutely.
Daria's one of
Go with
my.
girls in the class.
Yes.
You could also switch it up and do Velma from Scooby-Doo.
So I'm gonna be Daphne this year. That's who
A
I'm
nice
gonna be.
orange top, same black little bob. You'll be fine.
That's true. I got the glasses already.
Listen, take it from the cross-dresser. Make sure that it's just multifaceted.
You could be Posh Spice. Didn't she have a bob at one point?
Oh yes,
Oh,
Posh
she
Spice.
did.
That'd be a great one.
I think
Velma
Danny was like
Kelly.
I think she had a pixie cut, and I don't think she had
I have
bangs.
a
Yeah.
thing for Spice Girls.
You have to keep the
Me
beard,
too.
though.
Oh
Yeah.
no, she totally had that black bob in the movie.
Had a bob at some point.
Okay.
But you could do a nice like Chicago moment. You could be Catherine Zeta-Jones.
Oh.
Possibilities are endless.
The
I know.
thighs.
I love it. This is a great purchase.
Edna
Or
Mode from The
Edna
Incredibles.
from The Incredibles.
No
Thank
thanks.
you.
Black
Oh,
skirt.
thank
What are
you.
doing?
Now that I could do.
It's
That I
why
could.
do you try to get onto the couch and then just stare whenever you got into a spot you can't fit? Oh, he can fit. He's beautiful. He doesn't know what he's
Okay.
doing, dude. Get big
Okay.
squish.
Yeah,
Also,
we got.
shout
Have
out
you-
to the
I-
puppy.
Ginger, do you
Yeah.
ever get
Okay,
just like
yeah.
the ear? Yeah, that one. This is fit. Because
Oh,
he's
yeah.
got like the real good squishy face that you can just like grab.
I love it.
Is that I was gonna say, Ginger, is that like it looks like that's what Reggie has too?
Oh God, yeah. Just the little. we
This
call
is the
her
one
Jal.
that I took home or I met whenever I was doing the fundraiser at Just John's. We did a drag fundraiser and I met him and yeah.
I
Had to
got
take him.
I got all of the updates from the drag show, and then that Monday he was texting me from work and he was like, I can't stop crying. I'm just thinking about this dog and looking at pictures of him on KRSTL's website. And I was like, if I fill out the application, will you stop crying? Like, I was
Aw.
trying to make you feel better. It wasn't that just that I didn't
Well,
want
and then
you to
I went
cry.
online and I looked at his like profile on KRSTL and they had brought him in on my birthday this year, and I was like, okay,
Oh,
universe, enough
fate.
with the sign.
So we
That's
like,
fine.
because we had not agreed on a third dog. So I definitely like, I was like, okay, I'm going to fill out the application. While everything is in transit, we will talk about it so that both of us are on the same page whenever we meet the dog together. Because I know you love the dog, but what if he hates
Well,
me?
we also
And what
adopted
if he hates the other two?
we adopted the dog, and then 2 days later, somebody had a hysterectomy, so that was just fun planning.
I didn't have to do any of the original training. No. All right. Wait, Asia said, what'd you say, friend? Okay.
Oh, okay. So we probably should get going.
All right.
Well, no, he just texted and said that he gets done at 9:40. So
Oh, okay.
Well, tall.
I mean,
I can probably
yeah.
leave here
What
at 9:40.
color is
Gilmore Girls, talk fast.
Yeah.
And
I can do that.
between
She's the
Watson
blue
and
without a
Kelsey,
highlighter.
Got it.
yeah, say between Watson and Kelsey, we can have you guys kind of fill in, and then you come back in whenever you're able to.
Okay.
We got you.
All right.
Thank
Well, without
you.
further ado, let's get right back into it then, and get going and do as much as we can.
Right. We end our intermission at the exterior of an UCLA hospital at night. Ernest's car squeals to a halt outside the UCLA emergency room, banging into the rear end of an ambulance. The valet takes one step forward, but Ernest leaps out of the car and shouts at her.
She's at death's door.
We cut to the inside of the examination room. Madeline sits on the table in a small exam room, a thermometer in her mouth. Ernest paces in front of her, frantic, taking an occasional shot from a flask that he carries. Dr. Shelby Harris, 60-ish, tired, sweeps through the doors. Harris has been in the ER for 20 years and seen every conceivable human ailment, none of which shock her anymore. Ernest shouts at her.
She's at death's door.
Well, we just let me be the judge of that, all right? What seems to be the trouble?
I fell down the stairs.
Ooh, anything broken?
No, I don't think so. It would hurt, wouldn't it?
I should think so, yes.
Well, maybe my wrist and my neck's a little out of whack.
All right, let's have a look, shall we?
She pulls down the blanket and reaches for Madeline's hand.
Your left wrist?
Yes.
She takes the hand and holds it carefully, turning it a bit, poking here and there.
Does it hurt when I do this?
No,
It doesn't.
no,
How about this?
no,
This?
no.
This doesn't hurt.
Well, no.
And you're telling me it doesn't hurt when I do this.
Yes, that's why I'm telling you, okay? It does not hurt.
Uh-huh.
She sets her hand down and clears her throat.
You said something about your neck?
It feels a little funny when I turn it.
All right.
Harris leans over her, pulling her collar back to have a look. Her eyes widen and she steps back quickly, wiping her hand on her pants.
Okay, I see. Right. Gotcha.
Did you check for shock? Check for shock.
Could be shot. Could be shot.
She unbuttons her blouse a few buttons for her stethoscope and puts it to Madeline's chest. She listens a moment, then moves it up to a new area. A look of confusion crosses her face. She stands up, tosses the stethoscope in the trash can, and goes to a cabinet on the other side of the room. Madeline and Ernest look at each other, confused. Harris comes back with another stethoscope, much larger. She puts it to Madeline's chest, moving it around, unnerved.
What is it?
Interesting.
She takes the thermometer out of Madeline's mouth and consults it. She looks at her, thermometer, and then back at Madeline.
Ah, okie dokie. Well, I think that about covers it.
Ernest takes another belt from his flask. Harris
Whatever.
notices.
Wonder if I might have a sip of that.
Of course.
Oh, good.
He hands the doctor the flask. Harris takes one very long gulp and hands it back.
Thank you very much.
Not at all.
Harris steps over to a mirror above the sink. She runs a hand through her hair, but she's shaking so badly the net effect seems to muss it up. She takes a small tin of pills from her breast pocket and puts one under her tongue. I actually have guesses to what that one might be. I have one like that. She turns to Ernest and Madeline, trying like hell to be professional, but she's developed a stutter.
It's
You're-
nitroglycerin.
Thanks,
Mine is
Dr. Liesel.
Zyprexa.
Your wrist, as far as I can tell, is fractured in 3 places. You've also shattered 2 vertebrae in your neck, although it's impossible to say without x-rays. Still, there is a bone protrusion through your skin, which can't really be called a good sign. And your body temperature is below 80 degrees, and your heart has stopped beating. Your heart has stopped beating.
Silence. More silence.
What the hell does that mean?
I believe.
She holds a finger out, about to pronounce her diagnosis, but can't bring herself to do it.
I think a second opinion.
She sweeps out of the room just as dramatically as she swept in. Ernest and Madeline look at each other. Silence for a second.
Could be worse.
This is ridiculous. I've got to see for myself.
He goes to Madeline.
What are you doing? Stop it. Get away from me.
Ernest quickly searches her neck for her pulse, looks at her protruding vertebrae, and feels her forehead for her temperature. He backs off, staring at her with eyes wide.
My God, she's right.
Don't be ridiculous. She can't be right. What would it mean if she was right?
This is incredible. You're in violation of every natural law I know.
On the words natural law, Madeline gasps, looking down at the lapel pin that Liesel gave her in shock. She covers her mouth in horror and stands, shaking.
You're standing there.
Oh, shit.
You're talking to me,
Oh, shit.
but you're dead.
Madeline tries to scream, but only a tiny gasp comes out.
I've got to get help.
He turns and runs out of the room. Madeline promptly faints, falling back onto the table. We cut to the interior of the hospital corridor. Ernest hurries out of the room and into the corridor looking for somebody, anybody. But the emergency area is a chaotic place full of gunshot victims, stabbing victims, and bizarre accidents of all kinds. The admitting nurse is having an argument with a rude woman who keeps shoving a poodle at her.
Look, this just isn't that kind of hospital.
Ernest tries to get the attention of several other nurses,
Excuse me, I need...
but they're all in some crisis of their own. A seemingly unattached nurse hurries past.
Look, my wife is really...
The nurse ignores him, continuing on. Ernest, determined, follows her around a corner and into a room. Inside the hospital room, we see Ernest following the nurse.
Would you please just...
He stops as he sees what the nurse was hurrying to. An emergency team covers over a woman's body, giving her CPR.
Hit her again!
Ernest looks closer. The patient is dressed in hospital greens. She looks familiar. She's Dr. Harris. Beep. The EKG line goes flat. We cut back to the exam room, and Ernest is hurrying back to Madeline, but she's gone. A second doctor, younger, corporate looking, is there filling out a form on her clipboard.
Where is she?
The doctor looks at him professionally and caps her pen. She puts an arm around Ernest's shoulders.
I'm terribly sorry, sir. I know how difficult this must be.
No, you don't understand. She didn't. It's hard to explain.
I know it is. How can anyone explain it?
Where did you put her?
Don't worry about that right now. Give yourself some time to breathe.
Ernest grabs her by the lapels and shakes her violently.
Where the hell did you put my wife?
She's dead, sir. They took her to the morgue.
Ernest lets go and stares at the doctor in shock.
The morgue? She'll be furious.
He turns and races out of the room. The doctor watches him go, sympathetic.
Poor nutcake.
We cut to the hospital corridor. Ernest is stepping off the elevator and hurrying down another hallway, frantic, rubbing his head in confusion, trying like hell to comprehend what's going on.
Can't be. Just can't be.
As he walks, he sees three nuns walking toward him, dressed in full habits and sobbing uncontrollably. They're an eerie sight, sort of floating past him in all their religious grief and grandeur. Ernest stops and stares at them, thinking, and then continues on. We cut to the morgue. This hospital's morgue is a stark white-tiled place with silver doors in the walls leading to the you-know-whats. A morgue worker in the white lab coat hovers over a dead priest who is on one of the slabs, ready to start undressing him. The worker hears a strange sound, muted, like a human voice, but very far away. He looks up for a second, listening, then shrugs and goes back to the priest, unbuttoning his collar. After a few seconds, he hears it again, a little louder. Definitely someone's voice. He shakes his head, knowing he's the victim of a joke.
Those guys.
Ernest comes in, frantic, but trying to compose himself.
Can I help you?
Ernest stops, staring at the dead priest with a look of amazement on his face.
Hello?
Oh, sorry. I need to see my wife. She was just brought in.
Oh, yeah, you got some forms to fill out, and you have to sign for her clothes.
He shoves a plastic bag across the table to Ernest.
I will. I need to see her alone for a minute. You know? Just say goodbye.
Well, okay, I understand.
The worker rebuttons the priest's collar, slides a slab into the wall, and bangs the silver door shut, but it doesn't latch. He taps the door of the slab 2 rows down.
She's in here. Just a couple of minutes, okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
The worker goes out into the hallway. Ernest takes a deep breath, approaches Madeline's slab, and delicately slides her out. She's in a body bag. Ernest winces and unzips the bag as delicately as he can, revealing Madeline's face. Her hair somehow still not messed up. She's graying now, death really beginning to take its toll on her appearance. She's wide awake and teary, like a child who's hurt herself.
Ernest?
Yes, it's me, darling.
Ernest, I fainted when I woke up. And it was dark and I was yelling. And I was yelling and nobody could hear me. And I didn't know what it was. And I was scared.
She stops, looking around. She recognizes her surroundings, and now her tears break.
Ernest? Why am I in the...
Shh. It's okay. Listen to me. I understand what's going on. It's incredible. It's physically impossible, but I understand it now.
They think I'm dead, Ernest.
You are, but you're not. In the whole recorded medical history, that has never, ever happened to a single human being.
So Why did it have to happen?
Don't you know what you are, Madeline?
Behind Ernest, the door to the drawer with the priest in it swings open slowly. Ernest doesn't notice it.
You're a sign. You're an omen. You're a burning surprise nutcake.
I am?
Now the slab the priest is on starts to slide out of his drawer toward Ernest, who still doesn't notice his rapture building.
Of
Priest.
course you are. We're being totally belong together, and I'm being called. I'm being challenged. I have to fix you. I have to reassemble that which I have torn asunder. It's all so clear to me now. It is as if I've been struck dumb by many tablets, heavy stone tablets. Don't you understand, Madeline? God has intervened.
The priest slab, all the way out now, hits Ernest in the butt. Ernest whirls and sees the dead priest just as a massive bolt of lightning flashes and thunder cracks. Ernest throws his hands up to the heavens.
It's a miracle.
We cut to the hallway. The morgue worker has cornered two orderlies who are folding body bags and is taking them in the corridor.
I'm just saying, I don't think it's funny. What if the families were around?
What are you talking about?
The door to the morgue bangs open. Ernest and Madeline come out of the morgue and walk past them as casually as possible. Madeline looks at the morgue worker and smiles.
False alarm.
The worker laughs, assuming this is some kind of joke, and turns back to the orderlies. After a second, he turns sharply, raising a finger, realizing something is wrong with this picture, but having no idea what. Cut to outside the Menville mansion. Helen, dressed in black now, is at the gate of the Menville mansion, peering through the bars of the darkened house, trying to see something, anything, but all is dead. Suddenly, the gate itself hums and starts to move, opening. Helen steps back, confused. From down the street, headlights flash across her. She turns and darts over to her car, parked at the curb a short distance away. She hides behind it as Ernest's car zooms past, flying through the open gate and racing up the driveway, squealing to a halt near the side entrance to the house. Helen creeps back to the gate as it closes. She pulls out a small pair of binoculars and peers through them. Through the binoculars, she sees Ernest jump out of his car, run around to the passenger door, pull out Madeline's lifeless body, and drag it into the house.
Hey, I have a line. Oh my God.
She folds the binoculars and sticks them in her pocket. She stands, looks both ways to see if anyone's watching, and then, like a gymnast, scampers up and over the gate. She drops to the ground on the other side and sprints across the lawn, fast and low, headed for the front door. She's almost there when she hears Ernest's car start again. She drops to the driveway flat. Ernest backs the car up fast, does a Y turn in reverse, and stops just a few inches from Helen. He drops it into drive, punches the gas, and squeals the hell out of the driveway again. Helen leaps up and runs down the driveway, squeezing through the gate just before it closes, and running for her car. She jumps in as Ernest's taillights disappear down the block. She gives chase. Inside Helen's car, we see her as she's following Ernest on an almost abandoned road somewhere. She has a tape in the cassette player, and she's singing along like a mantra.
I will follow him.
I just want Sister Act from that. Up ahead,
We got to do this one
Ernest
now,
slows
too.
and turns in an unlit driveway, more of a service road.
What is this?
She looks up at a huge sign on the hill above her. Only the last word is clear. Mortuary. Outside the mortuary, we see Helen killing her lights and coasting to a stop just down the driveway from the mortuary itself. She peers over her steering wheel. Ernest is out of the car and standing at the back door to the mortuary, shaking hands with a man in a white coat. They seem to know each other rather well. Two more guys come out of the mortuary carrying jugs of some kind of liquids, strange-looking tools, hoses, and the like. Ernest directs them, putting everything in the trunk.
What in God's name?
Ernest shakes hands with the men again, gets in his car, and starts it. Helen ducks down in the seat as Ernest drives past her out the way he came. We see the exterior of a street, and Helen is following Ernest again, this time on Sunset Boulevard in Beverly Hills. He stops at a stoplight. Helen stops behind him. He turns on his right signal. Helen looks up ahead of them and to the right and sees a sign for the Beverly Hills Hotel.
Oh, shit.
She cranks her wheel and punches the gas, tearing out ahead of Ernest through the intersection against the light and into the driveway of the hotel, smacking into a luggage cart. A valet dives out of the way just as Helen jumps out.
Evening, Miss Sharp.
Helen doesn't answer, just races into the hotel. She's barely inside when Ernest's car pulls up behind hers. We cut to Helen's hotel room. We see Helen frantically shoving the evidence of her Madeline obsession into the sitting room. She pulls the door shut on it all, hiding it from sight, just as there's a knock on the main door. In the corridor, we see Ernest waiting patiently outside Suite 1110. He's about to knock again when Helen opens the door.
Ernest.
And yanks him into the room. Inside Helen's hotel room, we see her quickly closing the door behind Ernest.
Tell me right now, what's going on?
Well, it's very difficult for me to say, Helen. Madeline and I have had a reconciliation.
Helen just looks at him.
Ernest, that's sick.
Please, I have to be brief. She's waiting for me. I'm going to do some work on her.
She looks at him in disbelief.
Oh my God, you're completely insane.
What?
Ernest, I followed you. I had to. I saw her, Ernest. Madeline is dead.
Well, yes, but not in the usual sense. Please, don't try to be logical about it. It's a waste of time. It's a miracle. That's all I can tell you.
Stop this, Ernest. You're suffering through some kind of psychotic episode.
I should get back.
Snap out of it.
She'll be suspicious.
Helen picks up a glass of water and throws it in his face. For a moment, he just looks at her, confused, wet.
May I have a towel, please?
Ernest, I thought you had a plan. Both in one hell of a lot of trouble.
Helen, you're not looking at the big picture here.
Okay, you've already waited too long to call the police, so we're going to have to get rid of the body ourselves and then just report her missing. That's all.
I think she's fine back at the house.
The house? Don't be ridiculous. She'll start to smell.
Well, why do you think I picked up formaldehyde?
Oh, you poor son of a bitch.
Helen, if you would just listen for a...
Body disposal. Let's see. We're in California. We've got the ocean, the desert, the desert.
Helen!
He grabs her and sits her down on the edge of the bed. As if by reflex, she picks up a handkerchief and squeezes it in her hand. Ernest, still in his overcoat, paces in front of her.
I love you. I always have and I always will. But I have a duty to Madeline. I never meant to break your heart. But goodbye, Helen.
He kisses her softly on the cheek, turns and leaves, the door clicking shut behind him. Helen just sits there for a moment. She looks down at the handkerchief in her hands. She squeezed it so hard a few drops of blood from her palms have stained it. She stares at it in disbelief.
I'm
We cut to outside the Menville mansion the next morning. The sun is shining. The birds are singing. The crickets are cricketing. An old Datsun parks up in front of the Menville mansion, 3 people inside. Rose gets out and goes to the main gate. She punches a code and the gate swings open. Inside the mansion, the sun shines on Ernest, who snores softly, asleep in a sitting position on the living room couch. From the kitchen, we hear the sound of a door opening. In the kitchen, Rose and 2 maids have come in through the kitchen entrance, ready to start their day. They've stopped in their tracks, staring at the kitchen, which is a disaster. The contents of the refrigerator, shelf racks and all, have been pulled out and are stacked on the counters. Flies buzz around rotting meat. Ice cream puddles are everywhere. It's a mess.
What in God's name?
The first maid sighs heavily, grabs a towel, starts to clean up.
Waste, waste, waste.
Rose sighs too, tosses a stray chunk of bacon into the sink, looks up at the clock and starts to prepare Madeline's breakfast tray.
Well, I'm sure they had their reasons.
She goes to the refrigerator, a big Sub-Zero model, and opens it. Madeline is inside, crumpled slightly to fit, dressed in a terry cloth robe and slippers. Her body is completely blue with red and white patches here and there. Rose stares in disbelief. Madeline looks up at her.
Close the door.
Yes, ma'am.
She closes the door. She stares at it for a moment, trying to figure it out. She turns and looks at the maids, who didn't notice and are still busy cleaning up. Rose runs a hand through her hair. She finishes with Madeline's breakfast tray, putting a single rose in the vase. She looks up at the clock again. She picks up the tray and raises one hand as if to knock on the refrigerator door. But she loses her nerve. She sets the tray next to the door and backs away from it, into the living room. In the living room, Rose sees Ernest asleep on the sofa. She hurries over and shakes him.
Dr. Menville, Dr. Menville.
Ernest wakes up and yawns casually, as if on a normal day.
Morning, Rose. Is it up yet?
Well, sir, it's in the fridge.
Ernest leaps to his feet, remembering the events of last night.
Right. I know. Don't worry. Nothing to worry about.
From the kitchen, the maids scream and run into the living room, hysterical.
She's.
Ernest forces a loud, phony, exaggerated laugh.
It's a beauty thing. She read it in a magazine. Can you believe she actually did it? Ha 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 ha. Wait here.
Ernest races into the kitchen. Rose and the others fall into frantic gossip. In the kitchen, Ernest finds Madeline stuck in the refrigerator. He starts tugging at her, but she's stiff as a board. Her joints don't respond, and one arm is completely encased in frost like an old package of peas.
They saw you. I told them it was a beauty thing. Put some avocado on your face or something.
They'll think I'm crazy.
We can only hope.
He finally gets her out of the refrigerator, and she lands on the floor with a clunk, like a block of ice.
Why am I so stiff?
Rigor mortis. Try to walk it off. Hurry up.
Madeline stands, creaking and cracking like an old rocker. In the living room, Ernest, smiling gaily again, hurries back into the living room. He takes 3 envelopes from his jacket and starts distributing them to the help.
Listen to me carefully, all of you. Miss Menville and I are going to Europe. We've sold the house to a buyer who will be here in a few days. I'm giving each of you 1 year's salary, but I'm afraid.
They gasp, looking at something behind Ernest. Madeline is making her way out of the kitchen stiffly, her arms and legs responding like 2x4s, her face green with an impromptu avocado mask. She immediately starts up the stairs.
Good morning, darling.
Good morning, everyone. It's me, perfectly fine, as you can see, just a Swedish skin thing.
She waves, but with her broken wrist, her hand flops back unnaturally. It seems stuck. So she reaches back and pulls it forward, trying to act natural as she continues up the stairs, which is a bit of a chore. Ernest opens the front door for Rose and the others.
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid you all have to leave this morning.
They don't answer as they're fascinated, staring at Madeline as she makes her clunky, precarious way up the stairs.
Now, actually.
But sir, we were happy here.
So are we. Thank you all so much for everything. Have lovely lives.
When the last of them are gone, he closes the door behind them and locks it. We cut to inside Madeline's bedroom. She's staring into a mirror morosely. Ernest races in.
That was too close. We can't risk people seeing you again. Think of the publicity.
Publicity. Well, publicity.
Don't even think about it.
Why am I so sweaty?
It's not sweat, darling. You're defrosting. I have to make you presentable now.
She looks at the mirror again, totally defeated.
It's hopeless. Completely hopeless. And I looked so good.
You will again. Remember the kind of work I used to do? Well, I'm going to be even better. You're going to be my masterpiece.
Right now. We cut to the interior of Mendel's third floor. Used surgical equipment and empty jugs of formaldehyde and lye are piled in the corner of the third floor of the house. It's quiet, except for a strange sound. It's familiar, but a little hard to place at first. Is that what it is? Spray paint. This is why I love her. Moving over, past the used equipment and a phone that is ringing but ignored, we see a wastebasket half filled with empty spray paint cans. Past that, we come upon one of the legs of the pool table, which has been covered with a sheet, turning it into a makeshift hospital bed. We move up it, somewhat nervously. Madeline is laying on the table, face down. We start at her feet, which look absolutely fabulous, by the way. Pink and healthy. And then we move up toward her behind. Ernest hovers over her like an artist, in gloves and a barbecue apron that reads "Kiss the Chef." He's applied masking tape along the line where her butt gives way to her legs and is leaning over it with a can of spray paint. He sprays a bit of the paint onto his own fingers and rolls it around, studying the color. Deciding against it, he tosses the can and leans back, selecting another from a rack with about 24 different colors behind him. He seems truly happy, humming to himself as he works. The phone, which had stopped ringing, starts again.
Who keeps calling?
Ernest, annoyed at the distraction, goes to the phone and tears it out of the wall. He returns to his work.
Hold still. This is the tricky part.
Holding a shaking hand right with the other to steady it, he sprays a smooth line along the masking tape.
What are you doing down there?
Ernest rips off the masking tape with a flourish.
Hand line, darling.
We cut to the inside of Helen's hotel room at dusk. Helen is a fanatic, running faster than a human being can run on her treadmill. There's a knock at the door and a bellhop comes in.
Miss Sharp, you asked for the maps of Death Valley?
Helen doesn't even slow down as she answers. She's not even out of breath.
Do your podcast, please.
Helen, you there?
Sorry, I'm here, I promise. Hold on, where am I at? Okay. Just leave them on the table, thank you. Wait a minute. When does the sun go down tonight?
About an hour, I think.
Did you say it? Okay. We cut to the interior of a hardware store at night. Helen, they said now dressed in black, but she was dressed in black last time. They told us what she was dressed
She was on the
in.
treadmill.
Oh, Helen, yeah. Helen, now dressed in black, stands at the counter of a hardware store while the clerk rings up her merchandise.
2 shovels, 1 pick, 50 feet of rope, 1 large plastic tarp, 2 pairs of gloves, 2 pairs of rubber boots, and a 10-pound bag of lime.
She looks over at her over the top of her glasses.
That gonna do it for you, or can I get you a headstone to go with this?
Helen laughs at her joke way too hard. We cut to Menville's 3rd floor at night. Madeline sits with her back to us. Ernest hovers in front of her holding an artist palette and several small brushes. He's in a creative frenzy, daubing paints from the palette onto her face, blending them with his fingers, cursing when something isn't quite right, and rejoicing when it is. He does something wrong over one eye and reaches for a small jug of turpentine, finds it empty.
Damn! Hold still.
Where are you going?
I need more turpentine.
Aren't we done yet?
The shadows under your eyes are unbalanced. Do you want people to stare?
Madeline sighs and waits as Ernest leaves the room. We cut to the staircase. The door at the top of the staircase to the 3rd floor slaps open, and Ernest fills the doorway, looking like a mad scientist. He slams the door behind him and thunders down the stairs. We cut to the living room. We see Ernest coming down the main staircase, humming to himself, happier than we've ever seen him. He reaches the bottom, turns to head for the garage, and stops dead in his tracks and gasps. Helen is standing right in front of him, burdened with shovels, picks, and everything else she bought in the hardware store, looking like a designer gravedigger.
Where is she?
God, Helen, what are you doing here?
What's on your face? Is that blood?
Ernest wipes frantically at his face.
No, it's paint.
Paint? What are you doing that you have paint on your face?
Painting.
Ernest, are you doing something funny with Madeline?
Define funny?
Helen puts down her gear and strides forward determinedly past Ernest and to the foot of the stairs looking up. He follows her.
Come on, Ernest. Cough her up.
Helen, I really think we should talk outside.
Why are you whispering?
She's resting. She's in a foul mood.
Oh, please.
She'll hear you.
Up on the 2nd floor, it seems Madeline can, in fact, hear them. She stands on the landing, out of their view, and ours too. All we see is her hand, fully restored, resting on the banister at the top of the stairs. And Helen's voice is clear up there.
She's not resting. She's dead, Ernest. Just like we wanted. Just like we plotted. Together, remember?
On that, Madeline's hand curls into a claw, the fingernails digging into the banister.
You may have done it alone, but I can't walk away from it now, not with you putting both of us in jeopardy like this. We're going to bury her in Death Valley and be done with her once and for all.
Helen, please, just listen.
Stop waffling. She deserved it, Ernest. She was a homewrecker. She was a man-eater, and she was a bad actress.
Madeline's fingers scrape down the banister, leaving 5 long, deep scratches in their wake. Back down in the living room.
Believe me, Helen, she's not ready to get buried. She's upstairs.
Then why don't you go ask her to come down? Why don't you tell her to come down here walk right up to me and kiss me on the.
A voice comes from the top of the stairs.
Kiss you on the.
They turn and look up. Madeline stands at the head of the stairs, now in full view, hands on hips, dressed to kill in a pair of skin-tight pants and a loose blouse. She looks absolutely ravishing, better than she did the night she first took the potion. Ernest has even given her a healthy suntan.
Hell.
Darling,
What are you two plotting down here? Or should I say, what else?
Helen stares at her, absolutely shocked out of her skin. Her mouth moves, but she's unable to form words. Madeline starts down the stairs, and as we watch her, there should only be one word in our minds: hips.
My God, it's alive.
are you angry, honey?
It's alive and it's beautiful.
Are you very angry, dear?
Madeline ignores him completely, reaching the bottom of the stairs and sweeping right between them, headed for the fireplace. She seems strangely calm. Too calm.
Oh boy.
He grabs her by the arm and starts leading her away out into the terrace, which is through two sliding glass doors.
I think you'd better go right now. I see a very bad situation developing here.
How can this be? This is impossible. I saw her, Ernest. She was dead.
Helen, please. You don't know her the way I do.
Ginger, I thought, wait,
Okay.
there we
Can you
go.
hear me? Okay.
No, you're really quiet. Sorry.
Oh, my
Ernest
bad.
hears a creaking sound behind him and turns back to Madeline at the fireplace. The shotgun case next to the fireplace is hanging open. So is one of the drawers in its base, which is filled with shotgun shells. Ernest's eyes widen as Madeline snaps shut at the barrel of the enormous shotgun and points it straight at Helen. He tries to shout, but nothing comes out.
I just want you to know one thing, Hal.
Helen turns around.
You brought this on yourself.
Madeline pulls the trigger on both barrels. Helen catches the shots in the midsection, is thrown through the air, and comes to rest in an enormous fountain out of the terrace. Madeline breaks open the smoking barrels and the shell casings ping across the floor.
I should have done that years ago.
What have you done?
What have I done? Defended myself, that's what. You plotter. You co-conspirator. Check it out. Right in the fountain.
Ernest runs to Helen's still form, which is floating upside down in the fountain. The water is completely red. Ernest feels for a pulse with shaking hands.
She's dead.
Madeline joins him at the fountain and grabs his arms excitedly.
She is. Oh. These are the moments that make life worth living.
Throughout the following, Ernest runs around the house, turning off lights, pulling drapes, closing blinds.
My God, Madeline. It was horrible. That was brutal. And it was stupid. The police, Madeline, the police.
What are they gonna do? Give me the gas chamber? Big deal.
Life imprisoned then. Do you know what that means for a person in your condition?
You're so negative. Can't you, for once, just let me enjoy a moment?
What about that gunshot? What if the neighbors ask questions?
Neighbors? What neighbors? In 12 years in Los Angeles, have you ever seen a neighbor?
I have to think. One of us has to be rational.
I am completely rational. We're going to bury her, Ernest, in Death Valley, you and me.
I'll do no such thing.
Oh no, that's pretty strong talk for a murderer on the run. Let's face it, Ernest. That's exactly what you are. What if the police were to receive an anonymous phone call about what you and I, uh, an anonymous call about you and found me upstairs, dead? Ain't nobody play dead like me. What would you tell them? I'm sure you'd be very popular in prison.
I'll get the shovels.
He runs to the tools Helen brought and struggles to lift them up. He staggers back out into the terrace with them.
And she even paid for the hardware. Don't you just love it?
Ernest drops all the burial supplies next to the fountain and starts to unfurl the roll of plastic. He looks up at Madeline, who is staring at Helen, happy as can be.
Help me. I'm not going to be your accomplice all by myself.
She starts to help him. Both of them turn and bend over the plastic, their backs to Helen.
Well, today certainly shaped up in a hurry, didn't it?
Behind them, slowly, Helen starts to stand up in the fountain. She's dripping wet and with a big blackened see all the way through hole in the middle of her stomach. She towers over Madeline and Ernest, who are spreading the tarp out in front of the fountain, their backs to her.
I mean, do you ever just notice how just like some days they can just start so shitty and then all of a sudden something wonderful just happens and your whole outlook and just
She turns to the fountain to where Helen's body is, or was. Instead of looking at the fountain, she's looking right through the hole in Helen's stomach. She looks slowly up at Helen, who glowers down at her, hands on hips. Madeline freezes, her jaw dropping open.
changes.
That was totally uncalled for.
Ernest whips around, sees Helen, and screams. His knees go out on him and he bangs to the floor in a sitting position. Madeline backs quickly away from Helen and trips over him, falling to the floor as well. Helen starts to climb out of the fountain. Ernest and Madeline scramble away from her, across the floor, trying to get up.
Look at me. Just look at me. I'm soaking wet.
And there's a little problem with your tights.
Don't sugarcoat it, Ernest. I've got a hole in my stomach.
It's another miracle.
Madeline, finally regaining herself, stands up.
It is not.
She looks to Helen.
You fraud. 48 miles a day, my ass.
She walks over to Helen and flips back her collar, revealing a shining Siempre Viva pin, just like her own.
This is your beauty book. This is your secret. You took the potion.
She rips the pin off Helen's collar.
What do you know about it? You took the potion too.
Took what?
That's why you look the way you do. And you are dead.
A very select group. Ha! Some selection if they let you in.
What do you mean if they let you in? I took it in New York years before you did. Way before you.
What are you two talking about?
The
potion!
potion!
What potion?
I paid everything I had, and now look at me. I'm soaking wet.
Madeline points to her stomach.
And don't forget that.
And I've got a hole in my stomach.
You both took a potion?
Try to keep up.
A satanic potion?
Well, I hope that little hole in your stomach teaches you a lesson.
I don't think this is a miracle at all.
You see what happens to people who obsess about their weight.
Madeline giggles to herself and turns, walking away from Helen.
And as a friend, let me just say, I'd stay out of bathing suit season if I were you. People might call you a...
Clang! Something big and heavy hits Madeline on the head from behind, and she sails off her feet. Helen stands behind her, soaking wet with a hole in her stomach and holding one of her shovels. Madeline stands back up, her neck broken again, her head dangling over her back.
I just fixed this.
She grabs her head by her hair and lifts it back into place. Although the vertebrae have become hopelessly tangled again. And that wig only has about like 3 neck breakings left in it. Ernest clasps his hand to his mouth in shock. Helen goes to the fountain, grabs the other shovel, and tosses it to Madeline. A challenge. Madeline catches it with one hand.
On guard, bitch.
The women start to circle each other, wielding the shovels like broadswords.
What yourself, Madeline? You're not screwing with the same old Helen. I don't know what that means.
Did anyone?
Ernest steps between them, the peacemaker.
Now, hold on, girls. Well, I should say women. Why don't we all just go into the kitchen, sit down, and have a really good...
Clang! Ernest ducks at the last second as the women swing the shovels at each other, clanging them together just where his head would have been.
Gee,
I thought you'd learn not to compete with me, Helen. I always win.
Clang!
You may have won, but you've never played fair.
Clang! Ernest backs away from them, slowly, up the stairs. The women's shadows fall on the stairs around him as they pitch an unholy battle, shouting, clanging the shovels off each other, fighting like Vikings or something.
You're a sore loser. Who cares if I played fair? I won, period.
Clang!
Just because you could raise your legs higher and wider than anyone.
Clang!
You mean better than anyone?
Ernest reaches the top of the stairs and stops, staring down at them in horror as their shadows dance at his feet.
I'll be upstairs.
We cut to the Menville third floor. While the crashing and clanging of the battle rages on downstairs, Ernest, looking like a man at the end of his goddamn rope, silently trudges up to his third floor sanctuary. Downstairs, the battle rages on. Madeline swings at Helen, misses, and her shovel cracks off in the middle of the handle. Realizing she has a spear now, she chucks it at Helen, but it sails through the hole in Helen's midsection and sticks in the sofa.
Yes. No.
Madeline does a double take.
Wait a minute. This is pointless. Nothing even hurts. We can't even cause each other pain.
She bops Madeline on the top of her head with her shovel, and Madeline's head disappears down between her shoulders.
Talk about pain. Bobby O'Brien, Scott Hunter, Ernest Men. This pain. I loved them and they loved me.
She stops as Madeline, who's been struggling to reseat her head on her shoulders while Helen was speaking, isn't really listening.
Will not speak to you until you put your head on straight.
Madeline finally succeeds.
They were all I had, and you took them away. Not because you cared, but just to hurt me. You hurt me on purpose.
That's not true.
Liar.
You were the one who attacked me. Did you think I was blind? Did you think I was deaf? Did you think I never heard what you and your snotty little friend said behind my back? You thought I was cheap, didn't you?
That's ridiculous.
Then how come you never once invited me to a party at your parents' place?
We didn't think you'd feel comfortable. It's what just wasn't. Could you stop that?
Madeline's head is drooped again. Forward this time, her chin banging into her sternum. Annoyed, Madeline yanks it back up.
It just wasn't usual for us to have.
Trash in the house. Say it.
You're avoiding the issue. You stole my boyfriend to hurt me on purpose.
I did not.
Admit it.
You admit it. You look me in the eye and tell me you thought I was cheap.
Okay, I thought you were cheap.
Well, I didn't hurt you on purpose.
There's a long pause while they both digest this information, deciding what to do with it. Madeline chews her lip, absolutely agonizing over the next words that are to come out of her mouth.
And I'm sorry.
Helen looks at her, truly surprised, but doesn't reciprocate. Madeline just stares at her, waiting.
I'm sorry too.
And just like that, the air goes out of the feud. They drop their shovels and drop onto the couch in relief on opposite ends. There's a long pause while they take stock of their situations. Helen looks down at the hole in her stomach. She sees that she is now inadvertently leaned back against the shovel handle, which is now protruding through her midsection. Madeline finds a decorative African neck piece and wedges it down over her own head so it supports her neck. Helen pulls the shovel handle out morosely and starts to cry.
Hey, don't do that.
Helen continues to cry harder now. She's not the driven Helen she used to be. She's more like the mousy Helen she was years ago. Madeline slides down the sofa closer to her and puts an arm around her. Madeline takes a glass of water from the table next to her and hands it to Helen.
Hell, honey, what's wrong?
Helen takes the water and looks at her in disbelief.
What's wrong? Look at me.
She stands up.
For 12 years, I put every ounce of energy I had into hating you. All I wanted was you dead. All I wanted was revenge. Well, now I've got it, but it just feels hollow.
She drinks the water, which almost immediately drips out the hole in her stomach. She watches it, starting to sob now.
Oh, come on. It'll wipe up.
Sure about that. I have a hole in my stomach. What am I doing?
We cut to the Menville's third floor. A scalpel thunks under the wall a few feet to the right of Ernest's still unmolested dartboard. I don't know why they use that word. Ernest sits morosely in a chair opposite, staring at the dartboard vacantly. He gets up and goes to retrieve the scalpels, but he stops in the middle of the motion, as if struck by a thought. His eyes widen and a faint smile crosses his lips as the shadows of two women fall on the wall on either side of him.
Ernest.
Ernest turns. Madeline and Helen are standing in the doorway, arms around each other. They're completely different now. Pals, girlfriends.
Helen and I wanted to apologize for our little quarrel. It's out of our systems now. Completely gone. Honest.
And thank God. It was awful hating her, envying her at the same time.
You envied me. I envied you.
Excuse me.
Did not. Wait, did you envy about me?
Well, your grade point for one.
Kidding.
Excuse me.
They look at him.
I just want to tell you both that I've come to a very important, long overdue decision. I'm leaving.
As if to reinforce that, he takes the dartboard down and tucks it under his arm.
Leaving? What do you mean leaving?
We need you.
I promised Helen you'd fix her.
And that needs work too. You can go first if you want, sweetie.
No, thanks, hon. Please, for old time's sake.
They look at him plaintively. He speaks quietly, with unaccustomed determination.
With on one condition. When I'm done, I go. You won't ask me where. You won't look for me. You don't even think of me ever again.
I have no problem with that. Do you?
Not anymore.
We cut to the exterior of Menville Mansion. Another beautiful Beverly Hills morning. An automated garbage truck picks up a garbage can from in front of the Menville mansion and dumps the contents, hundreds of spray paint cans, and other of Ernest's working supplies. Cut back to Madeline's bedroom. Madeline and Helen, fully restored and in their underwear, are admiring themselves in a full-length mirror.
Amazing. Isn't he? Not a blemish, not a pore.
Say what you like about Ernest. The man is a genius.
Madeline notices something on Helen's arm and reaches over to flick it away. Whatever it was doesn't seem to flick, so Madeline scratches at it with her nail. A chunk of paint comes up, and before Madeline realizes it, she's pulled up a huge strip of Helen's flesh tone paint, revealing a large patch of gray skin underneath.
Oops.
Oh my God.
Oh, I'm so sorry. Shouldn't have messed with it. Must have still been wet.
Ernest,
Oh, I'm sure he can. I'll catch him before he leaves.
She turns for the door.
wait a minute. What if this happens again? What if it fades? What if it rains? You think Ernest will come back for touch-up?
Well, even if he did, he's not going to live forever.
A thought hits them at the same time. They look at each other. We cut to inside Ernest's closet, and Ernest is in there. There's an open suitcase on the island, which he is rapidly filling. He empties one drawer and finds a picture of himself with Helen, the one he looked at before. He throws it and a framed picture of Madeline into a trash can. He turns and sees Madeline and Helen standing at the doorway. They have a neatly prepared glass of scotch on a tray that they hold in front of him, so invitingly that there must be something wrong.
Hello, Ernest.
Is my cab here?
Not yet, but we thought you might like some breakfast.
He doesn't answer, just grubs, shoving more stuff into his suitcase. Helen takes the drink from the tray and sets it on the dresser next to him.
You know, I was thinking, I was questioning myself. I was wondering, why didn't I pack this thing and leave 5, 6, 10 years ago? Why did I stay and suffer every indignity, every humiliation?
He latches the suitcase, picks up the drink, and raises it to his lips. Helen and Madeline lean forward, but he stops short with a thought.
It was because I made a promise. That meant everything to me.
He bangs the drink down and heads for the door.
Ernest, your drink.
She picks it up and they follow him. In the hallway, Ernest races ahead, the women behind him, Helen with the drink. He stops and turns sharply, pointing at them.
Do you know what you call those guys who stick to their word, no matter what? I do.
Not missing a beat, Helen slips the drink into his extended hand. He barely notices, continuing his thought.
Idiots.
He turns and walks again, this time with the drink. They follow. He walks and talks, gesturing wildly with the drink, spilling most of it.
Well, from now on, I'm going to be the idiot I want to be, an idiot with a modicum of pride, because I finally realized I'd lived up to my promise. Till death do us part, I said.
From out in front of the house, a car honks. Ernest brightens.
Well, darlings, you're dead, and I'm parting.
Almost as an afterthought, he raises the glass to his lips. The women lean forward in anticipation, but Ernest stops, looking at the drink as if with new eyes.
And you know what else? I drank too much.
He turns and dumps the drink into a nearby plant. Madeline and Helen look at each other, desperate. Ernest nods to them and turns to go down the stairs. Madeline looks to her right. There are 2 antique vases on a table next to her. She picks one up and bashes Ernest over the head with it. Ernest doesn't go down, just turns and faces her, woozy and confused.
What?
Helen picks up the other vase and bashes that one over his head too. Ernest pitches forward and falls to the carpet. As he blacks out, The women lean over him, blurry and out of focus.
Sorry, sweetheart.
You'll thank us one day, honey.
Everything goes black. We cut to the interior of the pool room. Everything remains black for a moment. There's only a strange, gentle lapping sound in the dark, like someone taking lazy laps in a swimming pool. Ernest opens his eyes. He squints, trying to orient himself. At first, he sees only steam, but in a moment, it clears and he sees Liesel von Brumens rising up out of an indoor pool, completely naked. She comes up some steps out of the shallow end of the pool, but it seems like she's just floating out of it. Her body is perfect, hard, tempting as hell, and she's staring straight at Ernest, who's sitting in a chair, groggy, dressed in a tuxedo. He touches it, confused. Ernest looks around. He's in some sort of subterranean pool room. Overhead is a huge stained glass window, a replica of Michelangelo's Creation painted on it. He looks back at Liesel. Every time she steps forward, a beam of light materializes above her, lighting her perfectly as if someone were flicking a switch every time she took a step. Ernest turns and looks to the door, where one of the beefy guys is, in fact, flicking a switch every time she takes a step. He's at a small circuit breaker box with many rows of tiny switches and one big one, one big green one, and one big red one at each end. Two other beefy guys swoop up next to Liesel and blot her dry with large powder puffs before draping a robe over her. She gestures to Ernest's tuxedo.
I hope you don't mind. Dick and Harry dressed you. You were improperly attired for the occasion.
Who are you?
An admirer. How old do you think I am, Dr. Menville?
He shrugs.
I am more than 600 years old.
You, what do you want with me?
To talk for the moment, like colleagues. You're a creator, a restorer, an artist. So am I. In fact, I've even finished a few of your early works for you.
You sound like you're trying to sell me something.
She smiles. She sits down on a chair next to him. Her robe falls open just a bit too much. Ernest swallows.
No, Dr. Menville, not you. To you, I would like to give a gift, the gift of life and youth forever.
She opens the wooden potion case, which is on a small table between them. Ernest looks at the silvery potion inside. He looks back up at Liesel.
I saw your wife and friend. You did brilliant work. You're a genius. You're a god.
She notices he's looking at her breasts, but does nothing to cover them. She reaches out and puts her hands on his face.
My dream is to have a world full of Ernest Menvilles, but instead, look what I've had to settle for. Movie people. The real triumphs always refused me. Shakespeare, Lincoln, Max Factor, all of them were too selfish. They would deprive this world of their magic, so I deprived them of this world.
You killed them?
I can't stand rejection. It's a fault, I know.
Ernest looks around, suddenly realizing he's in danger. The beefy guys have moved in a little closer and are definitely looking menacing.
Show me your hands. Come on, I won't bite.
Ernest holds out his shaking hands, and Liesel sighs sadly. She takes his right hand in hers. Moving quickly, she slides the dagger out of the potion case and slits his index finger.
Hey,
Liesel dips the dagger in the potion and drips it into Ernest's cut.
what are you?
I'm loving you. Look,
Ernest looks down. Sure enough, his left hand is still aged and shaking, but his right hand is youthful, steady as a rock. He looks at Liesel, his eyes swollen with tears.
My God.
thank you.
She stands up and moves around behind his chair, whispering in his ear seductively.
But don't be modest. That's what you do, isn't it? It's what you've always done. Stopped time in people's hands and their faces. You're Don Quixote, tilting at nature's windmill.
She picks up the vial of the potion and holds it out to Ernest.
Go on. This is your chance to finally beat her. Drink it.
He takes the vial and holds it up. The light from the pool seems to shimmer off of it. Another light shines on his face. He looks down. It's the light reflecting off the dagger on the table next to him. He looks to Liesel and looks to the potion. He looks at the beefy guys only 10 feet away, ready to do Liesel's bidding.
It's the completion of your life's work.
Ernest is sweating now, completely ripped apart. He raises the potion toward his lips with a shaking left hand.
Drink.
The potion is a few inches from his lips.
Siempre viva.
The bottom touches his lower lip. He starts to tilt the vial up. The potion starts to slide back toward his tongue.
Live forever.
And he stops right there, a thought crashing down on him. He turns and looks at Liesel.
But then what?
Liesel just looks at him, confused, as if no one's ever asked that question before.
What?
At that, Ernest grabs the dagger off the table, turns, and zings it across the room, scoring a perfect bullseye in the red button in the circuit breaker room. Sparks crack, and the pool room is plunged into darkness. The beefy guys shout in alarm, but Ernest moves fast, grabbing the potion, capping it, and tearing out the door.
Get him! Get him!
Liesel just stands there, calm as ever as lightning flashes.
Relax. He won't get far. Not at his age.
We cut to the inside of a corridor at night. Ernest is racing down a windowless hallway, away from the pool room. He runs blindly, no idea where he is or where he's going. It's like a labyrinth here under Liesel's mansion. Behind him, he can hear voices and footsteps as the beefy guys give chase. Ernest takes a left, two rights, and a little jog to the left. He stops to catch his breath. He doesn't hear the footsteps anymore, but he definitely still hears the people. Only now it sounds like a hell of a lot more than them. He's terrified. Up ahead, he sees a narrow staircase. He sprints up it. At the top, he sees he has no more options. There's only a single doorway. He opens it. We enter the ballroom. Noise and light wash over Ernest. He's standing in the middle of Liesel von Rumen's enormous ballroom. It's Gothic, and she's having a party. A big party. There are probably 500 people here, all gorgeous and wealthy looking. There are huge artificial Sempre Viva plants ringing the edges of the room, and every single guest has a replica of the flower that they wear on their lapel. Ernest swallows and moves forward out into the crowd, trying to blend in. The door he came out of opens, and the three beefy guys tumble out. They search the crowd looking for Ernest, but all they see is an ocean of tuxedos. In the middle of the crowd, Ernest is wandering around in an absolute daze. It's not just that the people of at the party are attractive and they're famous, but most of them died years ago. Greta Garbo is there, in her prime, not one day older than the day she retired, talking to Marilyn Monroe, while Andy Warhol looks on. Ernest sort of circles around them, wide-eyed, trying to smooth out the wrinkles in his face. From the front of the room, a voice speaks over a public address system.
Welcome, everyone.
The crowd bursts into applause. Ernest looks. Jean-Paul Chagall is up on the second floor, leading with a microphone.
Lisa will be down in just 2 more minutes.
Everyone applauds again.
In the meantime, I have to do just a few announcements while we wait.
Ernest looks around, panicky, searching for a way out. He spots a large staircase at the other end of the room, leading to the exit. He starts to move toward it, trying like hell to walk at a normal pace so as not to attract attention.
First of all, I must remind all of you who stitch your own desks of our strict policy against popping up in public to grab a few headlines. I won't name names, you know who you are.
Everyone turns and looks at Ernest. He stops in his tracks, terrified. Then looks behind him at who the crowd is really looking at. It's Elvis Presley, slimmed down, looking like he did right before the Vegas show period, with a stunning blonde on his arm. Presley looks away, embarrassed. I'm very, very disappointed that there is not an entire chapter on Tupac here, but we will let that go and assume that he was at the party.
I
Across
almost
the
threw in
room.
Tupac when I was being Chagall.
I like the mind meld. It works. Across the room, Madeline and Helen follow the gaze of the crowd toward Presley and see Ernest.
Look, it's Ernest.
He still looks like hell. I don't think she gave him the good stuff.
For those of you who are on the installment plan, payment envelopes will be available before you leave.
Helen looks down and sees Ernest clutching the potion bottle in his hand.
He didn't take it all at all. He still got it.
Ah, shit.
They watch as Ernest edges his way toward the stairs at the front of the room. They move with him, keeping pace from across the room and also trying not to attract attention. Back with Ernest, he continues moving, nodding, and smiling nervously to people, fighting back panic.
Please keep your accounts current. Enforced collection is beneath us all. Krugerrands are still the preferred method of payment, with precious gems or works of art by acknowledged masters also acceptable. If you pay in cash, please remember, contemporary currencies only.
Ernest is only a few yards from the stairs now. He keeps moving, his heart beating wildly as Chagall drones on from the landing. I mean, I think it sounds good.
One sad note for you Americans, due to continued deterioration, we can no longer accept the American dollar because plenty of countries have dollars.
There are some groans in the crowd.
Oh.
Up on the landing, Ernest is heading up the stairs and into the foyer whenever somebody taps Chagall on the shoulder and whispers in his ear.
Everyone, please come forward. Lisa will be down any second.
There's a great deal of hubbub as everyone crowds forward, gathering under the landing. Ernest moves faster across the foyer, the front door in his sights, his escape imminent.
Will the gentleman please steal the room?
And there are loud clunking and latching sounds as several beefy guys go around looking at the doors and windows. Ernest steps on it, but he's too late. A beefy guy at the front slams the security gate into place, locking the door. Ernest spins away, hiding his frustration, eyes darting wildly, searching for another way out. He barely has time to think when he hears a whirring sound coming from the other side of the foyer. He looks around and sees a small door. It has a tiny window on it, around eye height. Light shines through the window, descending as an elevator arrives. Ernest ducks into an alcove and peers around the corner as the elevator door opens and Liesl steps out. flanked by 2 of her beefy guys. Ernest presses himself into the alcove, hiding as she sweeps across the foyer and takes her place on the landing. The entire crowd applauds, long and loud, as she acknowledges them, waving like, the Pope or something. Ernest looks behind her at the elevator, which is still on this floor waiting, and swallows.
Look at yourselves. Just look at yourselves.
In the middle of the crowd, while the crowd lustily applauds and cheers Liesel again, Madeline and Helen at the front peer up into the foyer looking for Ernest. Suddenly, Madeline grabs Helen's arm and points behind Liesel. Ernest is there, tiptoeing behind her, sneaking across the foyer to the elevator.
Let me tell you a joke Dick Clark told me this morning.
Madeline and Helen watch, frozen, as Ernest slips into the elevator. In the elevator, Ernest pulls the door shut behind him and turns around. There's no wall panel, only 3 small levers on the floor. He steps on one of them. There's a low chung sound, and the elevator starts to move up. In the crowd,
To which the man replies, "Don't ask me. I thought it was silicone."
the crowd laughs uproariously. Madeline and Helen watch as the light in the door of the elevator ascends.
It's going up?
Idiot. Come on.
In the elevator, Ernest barely has time to celebrate his escape when the elevator clunks to a stop and the door swings open. On the upper floor, Ernest steps out and sizes up his surroundings. He's on the upper floor now, the sound of the party far below him. Looking for somewhere to hide, he sees an open door ahead at the end of the hall. It's weird inside whatever room that is. There's an ornate bed visible and a strange glowing light. Ernest takes one step toward it, and Liesel's dogs step out of the room and into the hallway. Ernest freezes. The dogs stare at him, larger and more bizarre than ever. Ernest takes one step back. The dogs take one step forward. The elevator whirs again. Ernest tugs on the door, but it's locked. The elevator has gone back down. The dogs growl, and Ernest wipes the sweat from his brow, desperate. And then he gets an idea. He runs. Down the hall the other way as fast as he can, an ugly, gasping, spitting sprint. The dogs take off after him, quick, sleek, and scary. Ernest turns a corner and finds himself in a dead end, an alcove with just a steep metal staircase that leads to a door in the ceiling. He flings himself on the staircase and starts up, but now the dogs are around the corner and they're leaping at him, snapping and growling. Ernest flings open the metal door in the ceiling and sees stars above. He tries to pull himself through, but one of the dogs sinks its teeth into the back of his jacket, tugging him down a few steps. Desperate, Ernest shrugs out of his jacket, throws himself through the open doorway in the ceiling, and clangs it shut on the dogs. We cut to the roof. Ernest turns, finding himself on the flat roof of Liesel's mansion. He staggers a little, blown by the wind, which is stiff as hell up here on top of the world. In every direction, Ernest can see forever. The whole of Los Angeles is spread out far below. A spring storm is on the way, so thunder rumbles and lightning crashes.
Well, that helped.
Ernest looks around, knowing he doesn't have much time. He runs to one end of the roof and looks down over the edge. It's a sheer drop down the side of the house and straight down a limitless cliff.
Oh boy.
He turns and looks around, growing panicky. He spots a garden trellis that comes all the way up to the top of the roof on the other side and runs to it. He leans over that edge and looks straight down into pitch black. But at least the trellis goes all the way, at least all the way he can see before it's lost in the black. A door opened behind him. Ernest whirls. Madeline and Helen come out the door to the roof and head toward him.
Stay away.
He shakily starts to climb down the garden trellis.
Ernest!
You're embarrassing us.
The top board of the trellis cracks under Ernest's weight. He slips down several boards, smashing through each of them before coming to rest on a tough one. He heaves a sigh of relief. But his reprieve is only temporary. Now the trellis breaks all the way, practically splitting down the middle. Ernest spins, still holding on to half of it, and slams into the rain gutter hard. The trellis breaks away beneath him and falls into the black. Ernest doesn't fall because his suspenders have hooked onto the rain gutter. Ernest looks down at his feet, dangling over the inky black. Madeline, Helen, and the beefy guys rush forward to grab him, but the steel plate holding one end of the rain gutter rips out of the concrete. The end of the gutter swings out, away from the building, dangling Ernest out 6 or 7 feet away, held out there by his suspenders like a marionette.
Oh my.
He looks at the side of the house. The other end of the rain gutter is held in a steel plate with 4 bolts in it, 1 in each corner.
Oh, hey, it's me. Ernest, give me your hand.
She goes to the edge of the roof and reaches out, but Ernest is much too far away. Ernest looks back to the steel plate. One of the bolts crunches out of the wall. The gutter shudders, almost spilling Ernest.
Ernest! Do you still have the potion? Do you have it?
Ernest's eyes light up. He fumbles in his pocket and pulls out the potion bottle.
Drink it. You can put yourself back together again.
Ernest spins the cap off.
Drink it! You'll die otherwise.
Ernest looks at the potion. And then he looks at the steel plate. The second of the 4 bolts snaps out of the concrete. The gutter shakes again and this time bends, dangerously close to falling.
It's your only chance. Drink it.
Drink it!
Drink it.
The third bolt slings out of the concrete, almost hitting Ernest. Only one left. Ernest looks at Madeline and Helen, and they're looking at him, desperate. A strange and peaceful look crosses his face.
I'm sorry, dears.
What?
What?
The 4th bolt groans, pulling out of the concrete about halfway.
Tell all the monsters I created. I'm so sorry.
He caps the bottle again, holds it out, and deliberately lets go of it. It falls for a long time before there's the far-off sound of glass shattering. Ernest looks up at Madeline and Helen for the last time, and then the bolt rips free. The gutter falls, and so does he. The last thing he hears is the far-off screams of Madeline and Helen as he tumbles into the black abyss. Down, down. A seemingly endless fall. Just before he hits, there's a sudden flash of lights go on beneath him, illuminating something right in front of him, something he's going to slam into. A stained glass window. Michelangelo's creation. Ernest covers his face as he smashes through the window and plunges into Liesel's swimming pool in a shower of glass. He hits the water hard, his fall broken, but he still smacks the bottom of the swimming pool, but not too hard. He opens his eyes and sees something floating in the water next to him, silvery and shiny. It's the potion bottle, unbroken, still corked. Ernest grabs it and swims to the top, bursting and gasping for air. He looks up at the window he crashed through and over to the door. Jim Morrison is standing at the circuit breaker box. He holds Liesel's dagger, which he has just pulled out of the circuit breaker box. A half-cold blonde groupie stands next to him, ready for a swim.
You gonna be done soon or what?
Yeah. Yes.
He waves the potion bottle.
And so are all of you.
We cut to Liesel's mansion. Ernest is running down the hill outside the mansion, slogging as he goes. He hurries up to the valet parking area where a 55 racing Porsche has been brought around. Ernest shoves James Dean away from the driver's side, jumps in, and guns the engine, racing out of there.
Hey!
Madeline, Helen, and Liesel come out the front door, watching Ernest drive away. Madeline and Helen are in Liesel's wake, following her like disobedient children.
He still has the potion. It will be better for both of you if you get it back.
What are you gonna do?
Kill us?
Bury you.
Madeline and Helen look at each other, not at all pleased. We cut to outside Dominic's. It's late and the place is empty, except for the same comatose drunk at the end of the bar. The door slaps open and Ernest bursts in, looking wild. Looking for Tony, his regular bartender, but she's not behind the bar.
Tony?
Hey, Dr. M.
Ernest whirls around. It's Tony, who was wiping off the table in the corner.
Tony!
You know, you don't look so good. Everything okay?
They're after me, Tony. They're after me and they won't rest until they catch me.
Sure.
He leans forward confidently.
They're all around us, you know.
Who is?
She pours a cup of coffee and puts it in front of him.
It sounds crazy, I know. Don't ask me to explain.
He holds out the potion bottle.
You would never believe the horror that surrounds us in this city.
Cannonball.
Yes.
I believe every word.
He drinks the coffee without thinking about it, and he makes a face when he tastes it.
Is this coffee?
Tony holds the pot.
Should I make it a double?
Yeah.
She fills the cup, and he holds on to it like it's all he's got in the world. We cut to inside the Menville mansion. Helen and Madeline burst through the front door.
Ernest?
Ernest, come down here right this minute.
Wouldn't come here. This is a waste of time. No one would want to come back here. It's idiotic.
They look at each other for a second.
I'll take this floor. You look upstairs.
We cut back to the bar. Ernest has one hand wrapped around his cup of coffee, the other hand wrapped around the potion bottle, which he holds out to Tony.
Listen carefully. If anything happens to me, and I'm afraid it's going to, just get this bottle to the Times. Tell them to analyze it. They'll know what to do.
But
Do you promise?
I promise, but you have to promise me something. For once in your life, you have to take care of yourself. Don't just sit here. If they're after you, you got to go to the police or run or something.
It's no use. No matter where I go, they'll find me. I couldn't just disappear. I'd have to die. Die and be reborn. You tell me, Tony, how could anyone possibly do that?
Down at the end of the bar, the drunk suddenly sits bolt upright, raising his finger as if he had a terrific idea. Ernest and Tony look at him.
Yes?
Instead of speaking, the drunk turns beet red and makes one sound. And falls forward, his face hitting the bar with a loud clunk and his toupee falling off. Ernest bolts out of his chair and goes to him.
Is he all right? He's not.
Ernest turns the drunk over and puts his fingers on the side of his neck, feeling for a pulse.
My God,
What?
he's dead.
Dead?
All dead, extremely dead.
Are you sure?
I've had some experience in these matters.
My God, the poor man.
I'll call the police.
He heads for the phone.
Do you know his next of kin?
Ernest picks up the phone.
No, he had no family,
No wife?
no possessions.
No wife?
They are both struck by the same thought. Wives are not possessions. They look at the drunk and then back at each other. Ernest hangs up the phone.
Well, I've always admired him.
I think he would have wanted it this way.
We cut back to the Menville mansion. Madeline and Helen meet in the foyer.
Well,
Oh shit. Nothing. You?
nothing.
All right, let's be logical. If you were Ernest and you'd been through what he's been through, what's the first thing you would do?
They turn at the same time and look at the liquor cart. They look at each other and bolt for the door. We cut back to the front of the bar outside. Police cars are parked in the front of the bar, lights flashing. In the back, we see two coroners wheeling a gurney out of a bar, a sheet pulled up over a corpse. Tony follows the gurney, acting very upset, talking to a cop who has Ernest's wallet.
It's Menville. Menville. Menville.
I can't seem to find any picture ID or just credit cards and so forth. That's my cop voice.
Oh, I'm sure that's Dr. Menville. I him for 10 years now.
Yeah, well, without ID, I'll need a family member to come look at the body.
At the end of the driveway, a car pulls up in front of the bar, squealing to a halt. Madeline and Helen jump out.
Do you know his next of kin?
No, I don't think Mrs. Menville.
Madeline hurries down the driveway.
Mrs. Menville, what?
Mrs. Menville. I'm sorry. It's poor Dr. Menville. He's dead. I saw him die very clearly.
Ernest?
Madeline points to the body.
That's Ernest Menville.
Tony nods,
Yes,
sobbing.
He's dead?
That's him.
Ernest is dead? He's dead.
I'm sorry, ma'am. These are his personal possessions, his wallet, his keys, everything he had on.
Madeline quickly goes through the items, looking for the potion bottle.
This is it? This is all?
Yes, ma'am.
Was there nothing else? Like maybe in a pocket?
Like a little bottle about this big?
I don't think so.
I want to see the body.
Fine. We'll need you to identify it anyway.
No. It's ugly. He ugly. He fell into the blender, and I was making a margarita. Yeah, strawberry.
They ignore her, marching over to the body. Around a corner, Ernest, crouching in the alley, dressed in the drunk's clothes, hears what's going on and panics. He looks down at the potion bottle that he clutches in his hand. He's torn. Making a decision, he leans out around the corner. And I don't know what that is. Tony turns. He cocks his arm to toss the bottle.
Wait a minute.
Madeline has walked up next to the gurney. She reaches out and takes hold of half of the sheet with one hand. She starts to draw it back. In the background, we can see the potion bottle arc gracefully through the air over everyone's heads, unseen by everyone except Tony, who catches it gracefully.
Wait a minute.
Madeline turns. She's holding the sheet up with one hand, clearly exposing the drunk's face, but she's looking back at Tony, who is holding the potion bottle out in front of her.
Is this what you mean? This what y'all looking for?
Madeline and Helen exchange a look. Madeline lets go of the sheet, which settles over the drunk's face again. Helen steps up to Tony.
Yes, exactly. I'll take care of that.
Her hand closes around the potion bottle, and she tugs it from Tony's unwilling hand. Madeline closes her eyes in relief and joins Helen.
Ma'am.
Madeline turns. For the first time, she realizes she is a grieving widow.
Oh, yes. Yes. That's my husband.
Fine, you can claim the body tomorrow at the morgue.
The morgue. I'll send someone.
The cop shrugs and goes to his car. Madeline and Helen come together, watching as the coroners finish loading the body into the back of the ambulance.
Well, now it's just you and me, Hal.
Yep.
Terrible thought sweeps across Helen's face as the doors of the ambulance slam. She turns her head, sneaking a look at Madeline that is full of dread.
Forever.
The implications of eternity with Helen hit Madeline too now, and she turns to Helen with the same look of dread on her face. They stare at each other for a second, terrified, then try like hell to force smiles, but they look a lot more like grimaces. We cut to inside the bar. Tony comes back in and closes the door behind her. She turns and sees Ernest, still dressed in the drunk's clothes, standing in the doorway from the alley.
You did it. You got away with it.
They got away with it. Without that bottle, no one would ever believe me.
They'll get what's coming to them, Dr. M. Everybody does. Everybody.
He grunts, staring at the doorway blankly at the rain that has started to fall.
When do you think they'll realize that body isn't mine?
Not before you're far, far away.
And then what?
She looks at him, a look that is a combination of affection and sadness, because he already seems a million miles away from her, just staring out the open doorway at the rain. We cut to a Swiss street in the daytime. It's a small, quaint area somewhere in a village high in the Swiss Alps. There are no cars and very few signs of progress. Time really doesn't seem to move here. A legend. Switzerland, 27 years later. It's a beautiful spring day, late in the afternoon. Madeline and Helen are sitting on a cafe terrace that looks out over a park. They look exactly the same as they did 27 years ago. Exquisite. And they look bored to death.
You want to go to London?
Again.
Do you want to go to Paris?
I don't care.
Do you want to go anywhere?
Madeline just looks at her.
What's the rush?
Madeline looks out into the park. An old couple are there with a picnic basket. They're spreading out a blanket, putting out food, and moving slowly, awkwardly, like old people.
Look at that couple. Look at them.
I am looking at them.
God, they're old. Pathetic, aren't they? Eh?
Yeah. Pathetic.
She looks at Madeline, then at herself, then back at the couple. There's almost a look of longing in their eyes as she watches them struggle with their tired limbs.
Pathetic. Pathetic.
Out in the park, the old couple are sitting on the blanket now, leaning against each other. The food and wine are laid out in front of them, but it's each other they admire and love. They're Ernest and Tony, now in their late 70s, well dressed and well groomed. They smile warmly, the picture of happiness.
Hungry?
Starving.
She holds out her hand to him, and it's an old, wrinkled, liver-spotted hand. Ernest takes it with his left hand, which is every bit as old. And then he covers it with his right hand. The hand of a 25-year-old. Fade out. And the end.
Do you
my
remember where
goodness.
we parked the car?
That is the one line. Yes. That and the you paint my ass and I'll paint yours. The only ones I didn't keep in, but yes. Well, thank you all. I hope you're still with us.
Wait,
If you are, thanks for hanging in. Can we give 3 cheers to Danny Wilson and all of that narration? Because damn. Take a cough drop and take a breath. You've earned
Glass
it.
of wine. I'll be fine.
Yeah. All right. One more time, let's do hear it for our cast, the amazing Asia Marie Brown. Thanks for those ad-libs were fantastic. I love you. So great.
Yes.
The amazing Kelsey Heber Davis. Woohoo. Love. So good. Some of those accents were amazing. Loved it. Our MVP, Liesl von Rumen, Andrew Watson, and that amazing costume.
Yes.
I loved it. I love that your cop voice reminded me of the teacher on South Park as well, which is great.
I don't even know where that came from.
Great, and I loved it. Our fantastic leading man, Ernest Menville, aka Sean Watson. Awesome. The mustache is amazing. And my counterpart here as Madeline Ashton with the incredible wig, Miss Stephanie Six Trombone. Yes. And then I was your Helen Sharp tonight. Well, thank you all so much. All right. Well, I'm sure we'll be back, if not for Thanksgiving time, for Christmas time. So stay tuned and hope you all enjoyed. And if you have some time, please donate to Kiva Washington. We want to wish her all the best in her health journey and hope that we could contribute in some little way. But thank you all so much. And with that, I think we're going to bid you all good night.
Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Good night.